Comes the money.
Here we go. Money talk.
Here comes the money. Money, 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 money.
Dollar, dollar. Dollar, dollar. Ching, ching, bling, bling. Cut the chatter. You ain't talking money, then you're talking no matter. Bonus track, bonus track.
That will cost you extra. See you later, sucker.
You know, the guy in the booth who's talking to you on a tiny little earphone, he's afraid the guys at network are gonna tell him it's through if he lets the guy keep talking like I'm talking to you. Because the corporation's got the networks and they get to say who gets to talk about the country and who's crazy today. I would cut to a commercial if you still want this job, because you may not be back tomorrow with this corporate mob. Cut to a commercial.
Okay, flush him.
Cut the commercial. Cut the commercial. Cut the commercial. Cut the commercial. Okay.
Hi, Audrey. Norma, have a cup of coffee, please. Sure.
I'll have what she's having.
Hey, who wanted a large pepperoni? Coming up!
Hello and welcome to Overlapping Dialogue, a podcast of double features dedicated to programming the finest, most eclectic, and downright bizarre film pairings and cataloging the discussions that ensue. We're your gruesome twosome, Kyle and Levi Huffman. I'm Kyle.
And I'm Levi.
And here we are. We're back. A dinosaur,
like the dinosaur
story.
Yeah, I was going to say.
We had a little bit of a spring break of sorts. We always do take usually a few weeks off in the springtime. It's one of those things, you know, I love spring, Levi, but as teachers, it's just an incredibly busy time.
Yeah, it's always the busiest usually.
Fall is too.
Yeah, I guess it's probably like that time period of like October is usually very busy.
Well, I feel like just going in and out of the school year in general is always really busy.
Right, but and then now.
So this is going to be a Blue Plate special Memorial Day buffet extravaganza. We are going to get back to our regular...
This is a bonus track in the aquarium.
In the aquarium. But we are going to get back to our regular format.
No, we are recording this at our house, not in an aquarium, by the way.
In the aquarium.
In the aquarium.
With, what are the movies again? THX 1138 and Possessor, which we'll be getting to later this week.
Very optimistic films.
You know what's funny is, like, I never would have thought Possessor was like a more lighthearted movie compared to something that it's with. But I weirdly feel like it is. Maybe it just being a more outwardly genre movie and like kind of has. Well,
we'll talk about that next time. My ideas about that movie actually are randomly humanistic and kind of is actually about things that a lot of sci-fi movies don't care to be. So but anyway.
So we're gonna be this episode. You're gonna be dropping on Memorial Day, the one you're listening to now. That episode will be this coming Friday, so you'll get 2 episodes in a week.
Mm-hmm.
So we're gonna be.
This one's gonna be jam-packed. So
we got a lot of stuff to talk about.
A lot of ground to cover, man.
Because originally we were talking about coming back. We were talking about all these movies that we've seen, a lot of news. We want to do a little summer movie preview also. Talk about some major deaths that have happened. So much stuff that we're like, you know what, we need to dedicate a whole kind of bonus episode to that because there's just so much. How's school year for you, Levi? You're finishing year 3. I'm finishing year 5.
It's been good overall. I mean, this was a really weird year for me in a lot of ways, and I've kind of talked about it as it went, starting with being a coach, and it's felt really fast, but it also felt like it's been really a long one, and it's weird too though because having the same kids a lot of the same kids 2 years in a row, this has felt like a prolonged second year in a lot of ways, and like I haven't really got to restart fresh in a long time. So it's been kind of weird. So I'm looking forward to next year, but I'm really going to miss these kids a lot. They mean a lot to me, and they're a class that overall is not beloved whatsoever by the majority of people, but
Yeah.
I really care about them a lot. But they did pretty well on their EOG, and so
Shout out to all those listening if you did good on your EOGs.
We've got one more week together the rest of this week, and then that's
Awesome.
it. So
Yeah, I'm finishing year 5. This group of seniors that are graduating is truly my favorite group I've ever had. A lot of them I talked to, if not 3 times over the course of their time at Ford. So I have a really deep love and affection for them. I had a little bit of a tougher semester teaching civics this past semester, and so that was a little tougher. But overall, like, the fall was good, and everything went well with graduation. So looking forward to the summer, but also going to miss a lot of the seniors who are leaving. So that's the personal updates for you there. Again, we got a lot of stuff to get through, and we're probably not going to
this is
talk.
the kind of episode of, like, you know, where a dad is like you better get to bed. We got a big day tomorrow. Well, this is the big day that you've all been waiting for. So you were going to say we're not going to what? I'm sorry. You say we're not going to talk.
I don't like some of this stuff. We might just kind of go over more quickly, just depending on.
You don't want to talk about the Red Lobster bankruptcy?
No, I was going to start off with that actually,
okay.
because that's the least Jace film news.
Oh,
so I was
okay.
like, might as well
Jace.
start about
Okay.
that.
Mass man pod on here, I guess, or whatever.
Whatever
whatever. See, I knew I was going to say the wrong one, and you were going to correct me. So there we go.
This is the very first podcast we've done since WrestleMania.
Yeah.
That was we'll talk about that very briefly. That was the very first WrestleMania we actually have watched live. How did that feel to you?
Yeah, it was cool. I mean, it was weird because it felt like, this doesn't really feel right to actually be watching a WrestleMania.
Especially the last so many years, they've been doing 2 nights too.
Yeah,
so that was
right.
another dynamic.
So yeah, I enjoyed it. I thought there were some really good matches. There were a couple I didn't care about really either way, but finally Cody Rhodes won something, and I guess you won something. He's won before, but finally he won, and Roman Reigns has disappeared, and it's whatever. What was even better than all that though was the Rock. Saying broke another record for the largest gathering of trailer park trash. Literally the next night.
Monday night.
That was my
Raw
favorite
after
night
that.
of the WrestleMania weekend, or the favorite moment. But yeah, it was good. I guess you got caught up on King and Queen of the Ring last night.
Gunther was
King and Queen of the Ring.
It is weird, and I'm not saying it's bad. I actually think it's good that they do a Queen of the Ring tournament now, but it is an awkward name for a pay-per-view, though, is King and Queen of the Ring.
At least they just don't call them divas anymore. That's nice.
I don't know. This might sound lame, but what if you just called the pay-per-view like Ring Royalty or something, and just...
Instead of King and Queen of the Ring.
And you had the King of the Ring and the Queen of the Ring, but you just have a more simple name that's... signifies both of those things.
The promenade or the retinue or something.
I was going to show you this clip. I forgot. I taped it, put it on my phone of after Gunther won, he beat Randy Orton to be the King of the Ring, which was kind of expected. But the crowd was going, "You deserve this," chanting that, right. And he was like, "It's nice what you're saying." But it's not up to you what I do and don't deserve. And the crowd just starts booing real loud.
Wait, really?
Yeah, it's just like...
No, I would love that even more if he said that.
But
yeah.
And then Nia Jax won the Queen of the Ring.
Right.
Which,
no, I would support that.
No, I think that's hilarious.
Yeah.
Way to do it. So he's definitely moving up more into Gunther into the main event picture, which I think is fitting for him because he was Intercontinental Champion for a long time.
He's big enough, literally. He's a big fella.
My boy Seth Rollins, I thought he put on a great WrestleMania weekend. It is kind of funny, those superstars who are barely being held together by duct tape to get to WrestleMania, and then that happens, and then they disappear.
And then he goes full Dark Knight Joker, dressing up in the
Shield,
the Shield, believe in the Shield moment on Sunday.
Yeah.
That guy said, "What's that guy's name?"
Moxley.
Yeah, John Moxley or whatever. But that was hilarious.
John Moxley's his real name. Dean Ambrose was his name when he was in WWE. Now he's in AEW.
But anyway, that's a whole era of that I totally miss. Well, it's weird because I remember when I first found out who Roman Reigns was, I saw him in that Shield stuff, and I was like, Okay, him and Dean Ambrose, basically.
But
I saw
literally,
around,
especially with Seth Rollins, he came in literally looking like a suicide bomber or like a terrorist who was literally interrupting the whole main event, which was the cameo palooza that was expected. The biggest shocker was that Stone Cold was not involved, but the Undertaker, which was more shocking because his name was not remotely in the rumor mill. And that was a classic. Why wrestling is great in its own silly way is like you're not expecting the Undertaker at all. He's even dressing like in how he is now.
Yeah,
the lights go out, like, and implying this supernatural thing.
He did more of the American Bad A thing instead of like the typical like looking like the Undertaker like kind of thing.
And the crowd would have went ballistic for Stone Cold, but like when the gong hit, the crowd was literally like, "What?"
Yeah,
like,
right.
I mean, so
yeah.
I will say it has been a little bit of a lull since WrestleMania. I mean, Backlash was pretty good, I will say, in his event. I do like also that Damian Priest is the new World Heavyweight Champion. He's been a good fit for that so far. Him and Drew McIntyre, who's also been on a great run recently, they've already said they're going to have a Clash at the Castle in a few weeks, which is in Scotland.
What?
Which
of course they'll win that.
expecting.
Yeah, definitely. But Clash at the Castle.
They do so many of these events all around the world now. That's in Scotland. Backlash was in Lyon, France. Best crowd I've ever seen as far as
soccer crowds there. Yeah.
Also, they just did King and Queen of the Ring in Saudi Arabia. They're doing Money in the Bank in Toronto, I believe. So they're just definitely going all over. Anyways, wrestling's great. Been fun. Again, waiting for my boy Seth Rollins to come back, but it's okay. He needs a well-deserved break.
Maybe he can save.
Speaking of
Red Lobster, well, I guess we need to play our Blue Plate Special music.
You know what? Retroactively, I'm gonna put that right after the. What I'll do is I'll just put that right after the bonus theme. I'll put that right after that, so it's already done.
So we're not going to cut because you know how like podcasts will cut this out and then they don't cut it out.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to say we're not cutting it out.
We definitely have cut things out before. But
yes, no, just little things, not like expletives and tirades. But this time we're keeping it in. And it's not going to be one of those cut that out and then it stays in.
Oh, that's the worst.
We're making a big deal about we're not cutting it out, and we're mentioning that we're keeping this in. So there you go. But anyway, so that's been dealt with. So now we can move on.
Premier League. We'll go ahead.
You want to do
that
that
from sports entertainment to real sport.
Yeah,
Premier League. So this, Levi, I think you said this was your very first full.
It was my first full Premier League season, which feels weird because it literally lasts from August to. It's basically the school year. Is what it is ultimately. It's like August to May.
Right.
I guess I can get Manchester City winning again out of the way by just saying that it was very close between them and Arsenal for months, especially the last month or two. And then I honestly don't know what happened. I think Arsenal must have either slipped up and lost a game or they tied a game or something, and like Manchester City was just barely ahead of them again. And so they won again, but they don't have the team they used to either. So it wasn't quite as easy for them. I'm hoping next season will be even more difficult.
Right.
But the big news, though, ultimately, so that's very just like whatever, you know. The big news ultimately is that Chelsea actually had a pretty successful season, ended up being 6th in the league. A lot of people went into the season assuming them to be possible relegation. And that was a possibility only in the sense that based on their performance in the last half of the season under Graham Potter and then with Frank Lampard and some of those at the end, it was just bad news. That was bad to watch. This season felt like with Cole Palmer on the team and also in Cuckoo being able to play here at the end, Nicholas Jackson had a really good run too, that we had better forwards. Well, not we. I didn't do anything. Yeah. Chelsea had better forwards. And so that was good. Now, of course, Thiago Silva's retiring, who's probably my favorite Chelsea player. He's great, very reliable, always great. So that's sad. Also, I don't know if I told you this, that Mauricio Pochettino is quitting as the manager.
Oh, really?
So we're going to have another manager mix-up. And I know a lot of people throughout the season, you'll blame anything on the manager, but I felt like finally I keep saying we, had hit a groove on doing well. And so I worry just a little bit about what that could do to the team, but I think hopefully that's a good thing in terms of that they can keep kind of what they've done so far and move on.
Right.
The good news is they didn't spend a whole lot of money like they've been doing and like just buy all these players, like Enzo Fernandez randomly got one of the highest transfer, basically over his worth transfers ever. Had literally won a World Cup and literally barely has played any in the last half season for this team. No, he just hasn't played. And so you see, like, that's what I'm saying. It's like, so they have all these people they don't really know what to do with. I mean, João Felix was there for a while last season. I felt like I would have liked him to have stayed, but it's whatever. Thankfully, the goalkeeping has been better with Sanchez, and honestly, I feel bad. I can't remember the other guy's name. He's an Eastern European guy. He's really good. And I was kind of missing Kepa, Aretha Balaga. He's at Real Madrid now. But anyway, I'm a little worried, but I also feel good that they kind of got everything figured out this season to where they're back in European football, where they're going to be able to play something in Europe. And it could be a better season next year. I don't know, but thankfully it got up to 6th place, which is not bad at all for what we went into it with. I'll go ahead and tell you that we're going to go see Chelsea and Real Madrid play in August.
The exhibition game.
Which is probably going to be the greatest game of all time because, not literally, but just to have been there for, because you've literally got Chelsea, which is my favorite team, but then also the fact that Mbappe is going to go to Real Madrid.
I was getting ready to ask about this too, because this had been rumored for a while, right? And you had been talking about that was going to happen.
And then Kepa's still there. And I mean, that's probably just going to be very easily Real Madrid. And Real Madrid's one of the biggest teams in the world anyway. I think they technically are the biggest team in the world, like revenue-wise and fandom-wise. But they are literally probably going to be the best team in the world very easily. Of all the players, they're going to play for them. And it's going to be kind of sad to see how bad they probably beat Chelsea. But it'll be nice to see other players that I like there too, and just I feel like it'll be a goodwill experiment for me. Of like, it doesn't matter if Chelsea wins anyway, but I'd like them to, obviously.
Well, just even be in a position to see them play here in America,
to see Mbappe play and to see Chelsea play would be great. I'm my favorite player of my favorite team. If only we could have worked that out a different way. Well, but there was that rumor last season that he was going to leave PSG and go to Chelsea very briefly. That was a rumor.
Imagine that.
And,
there's probably rumors for practically most teams.
And mainly it was that we all knew he was going to go to Real Madrid this coming season, Mbappe, but there was a question of whether he could even get along with the PSG ownership long enough to do another season. And it literally would have been like a one-season kind of worthless loan until that contract expired, and then he would go there. Right. But, anyway, I mean, that would have been nice, and I tweeted about that at the time, and it very quickly didn't happen. Anyway, so that'll be nice to see that in a different way. And thankfully it's in Charlotte, so it's not far. We got the tickets for not too bad, so it's kind of a godsend in a lot of ways for that to happen. But
anyway, definitely looking forward to that.
We'll come back to that later. But all right, big news here.
Red Lobster, Levi,
is
going bankrupt. They recently filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy last week, citing $1 billion in debt. There's a lot of jokes, and I think this is partially true, but it's deeper than that.
It's true, I think.
That last year when they had the endless shrimp promotion, they were literally saying, "Oh yeah, eat all the shrimp you want," and
that's the worst thing to do in America is say something's endless because people use it.
And average people like us would be like, "Oh, I might have a little bit," and then okay, I'm done. You got these psychos. They hear endless, and then just buffet, that they will just gorge everything.
This is literally the Memorial Day buffet extravaganza of the Blue Plate Special.
One of the reasons we were
so there
about
are a bunch of people coming here like, oh my God, what?
Yeah.
It's like free beer, but the band free beer, but then you get Christian music. Well, this is buffet, but then you get movies. So yeah. But anyway, yeah. So yeah, I think I literally heard it was that, yes, supposedly people had used up the shrimp that much.
Yeah, it said that there was eating challenges on TikTok. People were going in.
Oh,
and
really?
I
didn't hear that.
Fueled it a little bit.
Okay. If you want to make anything happen, make it a TikTok challenge.
Put the chain $11 million in the red, just that. Like they lost $11 million just total from the.
Yeah, so that's obviously not the big thing, but.
But also, I mean, there's this whole little Vox article I'm kind of briefly scanning right now. So they were actually sold in the early 2010s. Private equity firm. Ooh, those are 3 words that'll kill anybody. Golden Gate Capital, which sold Red Lobster owned real estate, making them beholden to landlords and leases.
Are they from California?
But they're currently based out of Orlando, Florida.
Because you would think Maine, but just because, but...
We've more recently been to Red Lobster more often. I really love it. I've actually recently fell in love with lobster and crab. I don't go there all the time or anything, but...
It's expensive.
And that's another thing, too. It's expensive. I don't know what else we got to say about this, but other than...
I mean, just to think about it from a business standpoint, I mean, it's hard to... you got to think about all the debt that you have to go into as a company.
Well, also, any food company, I've always heard, like, business-wise, restaurants are, like, one of the most expensive, risky propositions, even for, like, obviously you got, like, your major, like, McDonald's, or, they're run like a well-oiled machine, like fast food. But if, you're going for something that's, like, not quite total fine dining, but, like, bigger than, like, Applebee's or even Chili's.
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean? A step above that a little bit.
Yeah, right. Well, and that's the thing about restaurants is it's like, okay, everybody likes to go to restaurants. But at the same time, a lot of people don't. Because it's like most people do, but, like, it's the time commitment and they're more money than, like, your average fast food. I mean, we literally live in a fast food nation. I know that's like a good
R.I.P.
real
Morgan
good
Spurlock.
Yeah, he's not on our RIP list, but anyway, just because, no offense, but I didn't think of him and I didn't really care to mention him. We do have somebody on there that's a LOL death, by the way, that we'll get to, and we won't feel bad about that when we get to it, but you can probably think of who it is. It's Paul Auster. No, I'm just kidding. But
let's just say we're having a little bit of juice at this barbecue.
The juice will be loose. Yeah. And it won't be Beetlejuice.
Yeah. But we will talk about that later.
We are going to talk about that.
Anyway,
but that, like, we really do live in a fast food nation. I know that's a good little buzzword, gotcha journalism, like, thing to say, but, like, people just want to eat and they want to eat quickly. And they don't really care. And so, like, if you think about, for example, how much money it takes to ship, first of all, how expensive crab and lobster are.
Seafood,
and shrimp.
Yeah.
But to, like, that's a little bit cheaper, but obviously. But to actually ship that out.
Keep it fresh.
Keep it fresh, and also, like, just to have it shipped and just the cost of it in general. And then you try to sell that in this, like, more chain version of that. I mean, that's literally like that is the definition of bankruptcy when you think about it.
Well, and also, like, something like this being in jeopardy makes you stop and think about all the things you just said in a way that you normally don't, and think about all the supply chain, how that has to work, and it kind of boggles the mind. You stop and go, how is this even possible that this is even still in
because
business,
there's that whole theory about lobster that people don't actually really like lobster. And I know you're like, I do too. But, like, there's the theory that people don't actually like it. It became, in Maine, for example, because there was so much of it, it became a gutter food and a trash food for, like, poor people because there was literally so much of it all the time.
Yeah.
And so they said, and they hated it. And everybody's like, we don't want to eat this anymore. Well, then finally they started being able to actually ship because it spoils very quickly. So, and that's another problem when you literally have one of the most perishable food items that exists as a chain restaurant. I was saying you're going to lose money on that. So it makes sense when you think about it.
Yeah.
But that then people think, I actually like this because it's a delicacy, because it's so perishable and I have to eat it quickly and blah blah blah, and that's the only reason people
and
actually
I guess
like
some
it.
quote tastemakers somewhere said, "Oh, it's actually good." And
Right.
I genuinely love the taste of lobster.
Yeah.
But
Now I prefer
though.
crab personally to
I
lobster.
do love crab a lot too.
But anyway, the point is that it makes sense. It's just a shame that, and this doesn't necessarily mean it'll totally go out of business, because things that go bankrupt don't always go out of business.
Yeah, and
But
I don't know
it'll
all the
just be in a
details,
smaller-
but Chapter 11 bankruptcy is a way that you reorganize the company's finances and yada yada yada.
Yeah, and so they can figure that out. But I mean, and not to be all like, oh, Biden's causing all this inflation, because I was literally talking about this yesterday. Like, inflation is just a natural state. Inflation is just a natural state that occurs anyway, that is really controlled by corporations, not politicians, but anyway. But that things have just been the inflation over the past 4 years since COVID has made that even more of a drastic issue, I'm sure. I mean, when you literally go and it says market price on something, you know that they're losing money on it too, because there's if they won't even list the price for something, then
Right.
But anyway, so it's possibly sad days ahead, but I'm optimistic in terms of it figuring itself out. Speaking of optimism,
I was going to say, speaking of perishable food items, that's what I was going to say. Unfrosted, which we've still yet to see.
I'm not sure why I was going with the optimistic comment, by the way. I just want to be clear. I have no optimism.
Yeah, I was going to say.
I mean, speaking of Seinfeld, you're a weed. Society's filled with them, choking out all the pretty flowers. You saw somebody with optimism and verve, and you just had to snuff it out. So yeah.
Another Seinfeld connection is I was thinking about the whole lobster trap episode where they were.
That's one of my favorite
lobsters,
moments in that whole show. That whole Hamptons episode is randomly one of the best ones, because it has the Lyndon Johnson baby in it. It has shrinkage. It has and then the lobster stealing, kids stealing. Wheeling dealing.
Brother, watch this, girls.
That in that, literally he steals that lobster out of the commercial traps, Kramer, and then they're like, that's the guy, and he turns and is like, oh hey, how you doing? Like waves at him like. But anyway, Unfrosted, the Jerry Seinfeld joint.
Is, we've not seen this yet, but a very important news item came out of this. Is obviously a new comedy film in quotes. Directed by Jerry Seinfeld, and it says specifically on Wikipedia in his feature directorial debut.
That's hilarious.
From a
there's going to be more of this.
Him and three other people, four total. An ensemble cast loosely based on the true story of the creation of Pop-Tarts toaster pastries. This has almost been a joke that his whole life's been building up to this moment, because he's had a lot of stand-up bits about Pop-Tarts. It's clearly a weirdo fascination he has.
Albeit fetish.
Yeah. Fedited. And so he's really into Pop-Tarts, if you know what I mean. And this movie has been lambasted.
I think you need to tell me more about
lambasted by the critics. I say the critics like they're just on a mountain from on high.
The critics put out the hit on Unfrosted.
But I mean, the movie does look really dumb and bad.
Yeah.
Literally cast of thousands
does
here.
Does it though?
Yeah.
Okay.
So he's playing a guy by the name of Bob Cabana, an employee of Kellogg's, loosely based on William Post.
Okay. William Post, Bob Cabana.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Melissa McCarthy, this is my favorite, as Donna Stankowski, a NASA food scientist who joins Kellogg's team.
Why would they do that? Just so it could be your
guess is as good as mine.
Like what they're talking about, how you make food be freeze dried.
I guess so, yeah. I'm not going to run through all these, but some other people in this.
Please
Jim
do.
Gaffigan, Hugh Grant as a Shakespearean actor cast as Tony the Tiger, loosely based on the voice actor of the same name. By the way, the actor's name or the character's name is Thurl Ravenscroft.
Oh, I've heard that name before.
Amy Schumer, Peter Dinklage. Peter Dinklage is Harry Friendly,
yeah,
leader of the Milk Syndicate.
Oh my God.
Christian Slater as Mike Diamond, a sinister milkman. Bill Burr as John F. Kennedy. So yeah.
Now that It's hilarious.
Dan Levy is Andy Warhol. Let's see. We got James Marsden, Jack McBrayer, Thomas Lennon, Bobby Moynihan as Chef Boyardee.
Now that's funny. I think we heard that at some point, didn't we? That he was going to be Chef Boyardee in something.
Yeah. Kyle Mooney
like-
as Snap. Tony Hale.
Oh, they had Snap, Crackle, Pop.
Yeah. Fred Armisen as Mike Puntz. Cedric the Entertainer is Stu Smiley. Andy Daly. But the most important two that I want to draw attention to
Who's Andy Daly? Isaiah Lamb.
Yeah.
Okay, right.
is John
Purvis
Slattery
Pendleton is the
as
name.
Adman number 1
Yeah.
and John Hamm as Adman number 2. And the clip exists out there that we saw.
You know what I love about this, by the way, too, is
Yeah.
that you can tell they listed that in order of appearance.
Yeah.
Which is
Very,
hilarious
very
that they would take the time
Somebody-
to
yeah.
do order of appearance there. But anyway,
So John Slattery is Admin 1, John Hamm as Admin 2,
as Madman,
as Madman. But we saw the clip.
They coined it.
I'm not even kidding. When there was ahead of time, they just had the cast list, and I saw their names, and I literally thought, "Wait a minute, are they going to do like a Mad Men reference of some
Basically,
sort?"
they watched the Carnation scene, Dutch Reagan scene, and they were like, "We need this in the movie."
So they literally reprised their roles as
It
Roger
was
Sterling
disgusting.
and
That guy says.
Don Draper in that. Again, John Hamm looking real famous monsters of Filmland.
It
makeup
didn't look
job.
good. Yeah, because Slattery looked pretty much the same.
I mean, yeah, he looked about the
but
same.
yeah, that it didn't look good. Yeah.
What did you even? How do
Okay.
you? Well, obviously we're both big Mad Men fans. You'll find out even more about
wink,
that
wink.
later on
Yeah.
in your life with us at some point. All
Well, actually,
I'm
you just
saying
found
is-
that out right now,
Yeah.
or before, but yeah. Anyway, sorry. Go ahead.
As a Mad Men fan, how do you even take in this news? Like, does it even mean anything? Really?
No, because
I mean,
I was gonna say, like, I actually feel like, okay, to go back to the Carnation scene in
yeah,
that episode, I feel like
in season
the
6, I think.
yeah,
Oh, yeah.
because it was after the Chicago riots that
Yeah.
were going on, the Democratic National Convention. Let's say the Democratic National Committee. Like, I don't think it was at the National Committee.
Summer of
headquarters.
'68.
Yeah.
What could go wrong?
I think everything went fine
Yeah.
during that time. I don't think there was any problems whatsoever. I feel like all the admin in the room and then that other guy are all just kind of laughing about the whole thing, and then Culture walks in as the old guy and is like, I think it was disgusting, like the way
Yeah.
they were acting.
Yeah.
I feel like that's how I feel about this situation, is I'm not really taking it as seriously as everybody else is. I mean, it's already a movie about Pop-Tarts with the trailer. The one funny thing about this whole thing came from the trailer, where it was like the team minus 10 seconds, and it's like a launch pad, but then
Yeah.
it's like the Pop-Tarts coming out of
In
the
the
toaster.
toaster,
That
yeah,
looked
yeah.
kind of funny, and I was like, oh, that's kind of funny. That's kind of
Yeah.
clever. But that's a trailer moment. That's not a whole movie.
Yeah.
Right? But that I really could care less about this whole thing. I'm not saying we shouldn't talk about it. I'm not saying that either. But like, everybody's freaking out about this, and I'm kind of like, I literally care less what this is. Like, if this is what it takes for Mad Men to come back into the ether rather than them do new
it
Mad
is-
Men, like,
yeah,
I'm fine
it is also
with it,
one of
you
those
know?
things like Mad Men, like any other TV show, like dadgum, like in Breaking Bad, like they had them being in the like
they've been in
that
a
chips
ton
ads or
of-
whatever
yes,
it is,
yeah.
like popcorn chip
Yeah,
things
the
or whatever.
popcorn- I can't
That
know what
it
it's
is
called,
like
yeah.
it shows you a changing of the guards of sorts of like because a lot of people growing up, the shows that they grew up with later become the fodder for references or like advertising,
Like having
or
Alf
whatever.
being everything. I mean, yeah.
And-
but nobody really liked Alf. That's the funny thing. It seems like. Well, some people did.
But anyways, like it's
You
like
think Alf looks like one of those pecan cinnamon roll things, is like a that you eat.
yeah,
But
yeah.
as like an alien, it's
It's
like
true.
what? But anyway.
But anyways, like it's just now passed into the realm of
Yeah.
an era.
Yeah,
I mean, even like there's even also like those Super Bowl ads from last year that had the Soprano kids in it.
Yeah.
Remember that?
Yeah.
Like they've also that's passed into being
Yeah.
kind of a remember that thing?
Yeah,
You know,
I do.
just like that's
Yeah,
all
but-
it is. Like,
Well, it's like, I mean,
ultimately.
yeah, because like I think
Leftovers will not be getting that
no,
kind of treatment.
and
I
I
don't
think that
expect.
shows are all these shows are better than even what I'm saying, and they are clearly some of the best TV shows, the best TV shows ever. Not some of they are, but maybe not Breaking Bad quite so much. But fine,
The
great
Wire
show.
hasn't quite got that treatment. I
Yeah.
don't think. I don't think it will either.
No, I doubt it. I mean, like if you're gonna have anything that has like, Littlefinger show up in anything, it's gonna be for Littlefinger. It's not gonna be as his character in the 3rd season of The Wire, right? Mm-hmm. But that it's like having. Like I said, I don't want to compare this too much because I don't want to act like it doesn't matter at all. But it's kind of like having Archie Bunker or like Fred Sanford show up in something. It's like, why are you gonna get mad about that? That show's old. Like nobody cares
don't
about
you
it.
think that gets a little more leeway because it's comedic in general?
Yes, and I get that, but at the same time, it's like, yeah, but does everything have to be sacred all the
even
time?
like Jackie Gleason's honeymoon character, I know popped up a lot in the years following,
Right.
or even his was his Buford T. Justice or whatever his name was.
His Smoking the Bandit character was in everything. Get me a Diablo sandwich and a Dr. Pepper. I'm in a GD hurry. Now, but you know what I mean? Like, I'm not acting like those shows aren't great, but does every single thing have to be? Well, rather, the actual question is, can anything be sacred? Mm-hmm. So you have to get to the point. It's like, well, then does everything have to be then? At the same, no, and it should be. There should be things that are, but when you're living in this world where it's literally
a vapid
dreamland, as we're going to get to very shortly, that you can't wait. I'm not going to waste energy being mad.
I don't think we should either.
Yeah.
It is just one of those eye roll worthy things.
Oh no, the worst thing was how bad John Hamm looked. Was what I'm like. Like you said, famous monsters of filmland. Look, because you sent me the video of that.
Yeah,
and I was like, wow, okay, and you literally said famous monsters of filmland looking. But if you don't get that, we'll explain it to you off air someday. But anyway.
No, I don't think we should get mad about it. It's more just this eye roll word thing. It does just beg a lot of questions, like a cup of questions. Like,
I don't understand what the hell you're talking about,
to what
man.
extent in any way was Matthew Weiner involved in conversations about this? That's one thing that I wonder, too.
They did. Literally, he probably got a text from Jerry Seinfeld, and it was a real, like, Rob Zombie calling up John Carpenter and him being like, I don't care.
Well, I don't know to what extent this is true. There are deep rumors that exist out there. I remember reading years ago that Weiner and Hamm have slight animosity towards each other because he originally had the opportunity to maybe play the athlete part in Gone Girl, and he had to get out of filming Mad Men for a while to do it, and Weiner didn't want him to do it, and so that there's slight animosity. That's a rumor. I don't know if that's really true or not, though. I know it's not as much a rumor that he would have. It's not a rumor. I don't think that he was up for maybe having the Affleck part or whatever.
Yeah.
But,
well,
I think he saw that as an opportunity to maybe become a quote movie star a little more.
Yeah,
so
and I get that from his perspective, but you also got to see from, and I'm not trying to just defend Matthew Weiner for no reason because he's kind of a prickly guy and also has some very, very light Me Too things, so whatever. But but you signed on to do a television show
in the realm of Louis C-O-C-K. You mean
what?
In the realm of Louis C-O-C-K,
right?
You know what I mean? When in doubt, don't whip it out.
Yeah, indeed. No, it's not even really that much. Obviously,
that's one of the more bizarre Me Too stories ever, by the way, because it's not even exactly
Morgan Spurlock outing himself.
Yeah, well,
all mad respect for coming out and being honest. That's all. We're not going to mention Morgan Spurlock not one more time. I can promise. Other than Where Are You, Osama, or whatever that movie was. I guess that was his Carmen Sandiego version of a movie. I don't know, but
last thing I'll say about Morgan Spurlock though, real quick, was that have you ever seen? It's a famous kind of meme-ified post about like it's a guy
Monsters of Meme Land post.
That's could be a good name for
famous monsters of Meme Land. There you go.
Like a guy wearing a suit outside of a funeral, and as a caption, this is a real thing.
I showed up,
and there's making all these jokes of Ronald McDonald.
Yeah, I saw that where it's like, oh, I'm there.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny because I saw that and I didn't put two and two together at first, and then I saw Morgan Spurlock had died, and then retroactively, a couple days later, I was thinking, oh, that's what that was about. Okay. But
anyways, Matthew Weiner, who knows to what extent
well,
he
what
was
I was going to say
involved
is like with the John
this.
Hamm thing, it's like, yeah, okay, that's great. Like whatever, but you signed on to do this TV show, and you are the show.
Yeah, right.
So it's like, I think it's kind of worthwhile to want to do the
Fincher
show.
ain't going to wait any time to put a
and
movie
he
out
didn't.
anyway.
So it's like, yeah. So that's one of them things that's like, I can see.
I mean, those things happen all the time anyways.
You're screwed if you do, you're screwed if you don't.
Yeah.
I get it, but it's like, you're mad.
I don't know to what extent that's even exactly true anyways.
But we gave Ben Affleck an actually great part.
And he was good.
Yeah.
Him and J-Lo apparently on the rocks, but not that kind of podcast.
Well, this isn't gotcha journalism over here. No, I mean, and
I wish we had Harry Crane bumbling in there late in the meeting. What we needed,
eating the Pop-Tarts.
Yeah.
That's one of my favorite Mad Men moments where he's like, has all those like White Castle burgers after they see the fake Rolling Stones or whatever, and they like go and he's like, "What about your family?" He like eats all of them. It's like 40 of them or something, I think, come together.
It's a lot.
And he's like, "What about your family?" He's like, "Whatever." It's like,
yeah, Don is so annoyed with him too. Like,
yeah,
it's like, I got great news later on. It's like, you finally found a hooker that'll take travelers checks.
Yeah, he's like, I should have never told you that. Yeah, but
anyways,
don't. It's real. Don't let me up and throw your failures in my face. It's Sunday morning, for Christ's sake. That was Pete, I think. Said that.
I mean, like...
well, can I say quickly,
and
we'll finish this, but that... wait, what was I talking about? Oh, Morgan Spurlock? No, we're done with him.
For real this time.
Well, just that, like I said, it's one of those things with the J-Lo and... Ben Affleck
that's where
thing.
we're going. Okay.
Yeah, that I predicted that, and that wasn't much to predict. But I said from the beginning, there's no way they'll stay together. You watch, which anybody could say that. It's not that big of a deal, but I did. So when it happens,
so give me
I want
spec.
my recoup.
Get me my spec.
Recoup my spec.
Again,
anyway.
Mad Men's one of the greatest shows ever. The fact that it's popped up in Unfrosted, I think, is more of a credit to like, Seinfeld. He actually even recently said that he still has slight like regrets about the finale, and I think he weirdly also mentioned somewhere that he thought Mad Men was the greatest finale of all time or whatever, and he loves that show.
Well, I'm sure he would be really into that show in the sense of the nostalgia. I mean, also because it's a great show, but just the
growing up
nostalgia
when he would have
that,
and all that.
Right.
Yeah,
but screw
anyways,
that.
Mad Men. ... Pin it. We might be back to
Scarlet
it one day.
O'Hara.
Yeah. We got a lot of Mad Men thoughts, but you'll have an opportunity to hear those later. Cannes Film Festival just wrapped
the
up.
77th.
A lot of big. I mean, it's always a big deal. We've talked about Cannes in the past.
Yeah.
It's essentially like the closest thing to the filmmaking Olympics. I like to think
Right.
of it because there's just so much. Well, obviously, any film festival is a big deal in terms of the things that are in competition and the various distribution deals that come from them. And just Levi, what were your impressions of kind of following Cannes from afar? Because I remember the very first Cannes I followed in any way was like back in 2011.
Yeah.
Hearing about the Tree of Life and what people's reactions to it were.
Right.
And then Drive winning some things then.
Right. Yeah, that was the year of hang on, let me look. I won't see what like
the Tree of Life ended up winning.
Tree of Life, the artist was there, Drive, when you talk about Kevin, so The Skin I Live In. That'd be a great movie to see that way. I haven't seen it. Melancholia.
Well, that had all of Lars von Trier's pro-Nazi
comments
came out of that because he was
thing,
sitting beside Kirsten Dunst and she was like mortified by all that. I remember. Big deal.
Yeah. Anyway, as far as this now, I have followed them before, but I was a little more into this one. Only in the sense that I mentioned to the kids at school here and there, Cannes coming up. And they were all like, we don't care. And I was like, well, don't worry. I'm going to make you care. So literally...
Well, also for us, Megalopolis, its whole presence there, period, was a notable
Right. So
thing.
I literally, every day, would write on the board, and it would take up the whole board.
Right on the board.
Right on the board. Midnight in Paris also showed there. But that year. Yeah. Sorry, I'm still thinking about the 2011 one. I showed I would talk about that with the kids as far as what it was.
Yeah.
You know. and I wrote on the board every day the schedule, and it took forever to do. And they were like, "Why are you doing this?"
That's a reminder. Levi teaches middle schoolers.
Yeah, and they were like, "Why are you doing
in
this?"
Hudson, North Carolina.
Yes. And they were like, "Why are you doing this?" And I was like, "Because you don't care, so I'm going to keep doing it." So, but anyway, so I was paying attention to the movies as they came out each week. There were actually a lot of movies that were very interesting this year, and obviously Nora by Sean Baker won the Palme d'Or. Always good to see an American film win the Palme d'Or. That happens every so often.
I hate to sound so partisan about it because I love movies from all kinds of countries, but I'm always like, let the American movie win.
Yeah.
Like,
I think the last really
from
big one to have won was The Tree of Life.
Like 12 years ago.
Obviously, some other big ones that won: Pulp Fiction, Taxi Driver,
Apocalypse Now.
There's been a lot that have done it.
Yeah.
That's always random.
Yeah.
There's been a lot that have done it.
Yeah, right.
But it has been 13 years since the last one of, like I said, The Tree of Life winning that. And, The Tree of Life is seen as that kind of movie, right? I mean, like, everybody still talks about The Tree of Life with such reverence as a big, great movie that America made. It was like, that... And even though I don't totally agree with that.
I don't know about the other Terrence Malick movies that have played there. I know some have.
Yeah.
Thin Red Line, I don't know. Well, that wouldn't have because that wasn't done yet. It came out later in that year.
Yeah.
So some other ones too that won. I don't know if we talked about this, but Jesse Plemons won Best Actor
for Kinds of Kindness.
Yeah.
Yes, the new. And if you've not seen that, we're going to talk about that movie actually in a little bit, so we won't go too much into that. But that New Yorker.
Then the Substance, which is. I've heard some things about
and Margaret Qualley, Dennis Quaid. Yeah, that actually is coming out on Mubi over the next few weeks, so that's something to see. There was also that movie, The Siege of the Sacred Fig, which was written and directed by Muhammad. Yeah,
that
literally,
just sounds
I know.
So
but it was written by
European.
and directed by Mohammed Rasulov. Actually, it's from Iran. He lived in Tehran. Yeah, so literally it's... Okay, let me read what it's about. Yeah, it says the story centers on Iman, an investigating judge in the Revolutionary Court in Tehran who grapples with mistrust and paranoia as nationwide political protests intensify and his gun mysteriously disappears. Which sounds like an interesting movie, but that director is currently imprisoned, actually, in Iran, I think, for this movie. As far in some of the movies he's made. So I know that that's a kind of a big thing about that, and I think that won something. I can't remember what it was. And then of course there's some other movies that seem very the new Schrader movie, Old Canada. Trying to look. There was
Jacob Elordi, I think's in that. I believe.
Yeah. So yeah, there's a lot of pretty interesting things. Let's look. Hang on, there were a couple more. And then that movie Black Dog from China won the Uncertain Regard. Also that movie The Shrouds played there, the Cronenberg movie. I guess we can talk a little bit about Megalopolis, though.
Yeah, that was the big thing that obviously demands a lot of attention, being Francis Ford Coppola's perhaps final film, or certainly among his last films. Right before the movie kind of made some of its premiere, his wife, Eleanor, passed away, which was obviously incredibly tough for him, no doubt. And she obviously was an accomplished filmmaker and artist in her own right. She, of course, directed Hearts of Darkness, the documentary about the production of Apocalypse Now. I think this movie, and this is always what's fascinating about Cannes, is to hear the buzz about things that you're not going to see for another few months, if not several years.
Because kids kept asking me, they were like, "Are you going to see these?" I was like, I don't know. And they were like, "What do you mean?" I was like, yes, some of them I'll see, but I don't know. And I
don't even want to cry a bunch of tears about this exactly, because this is just how international film markets work. I mean, can you imagine trying to follow this stuff back in the 60s or 70s from afar and knowing you'll never see some of these movies? Megalopolis, though, of course, his Coppola's big sci-fi epic. I think it's safe to assume or say that the reviews were pretty mixed.
Yeah.
Some critics that I trust, from Bill Jabiri to someone I sometimes agree with, sometimes don't, but David Ehrlich of IndieWire They both liked it. Wrote more positive things about it. It didn't really matter if the buzz was good or bad. Obviously, this is a movie that we all and a great many cinephiles want to see. It sounds like it's pretty audacious. Obviously, there are some stories that came out also about the production. Some of which some people pointed out would probably not be stories that came out if this was being made by a major studio.
Right.
But it being independent, it kind of lacks the shield that some of those get.
Believe in the shield.
And the press
Right.
kind of protects
Yeah.
from movies of studios sometimes. Obviously, it got a lot of international distribution deals. It's yet to still get an American distribution deal,
Right.
which is. But there, I think I also saw that it's apparently it's already secured certain IMAX locations
Yes.
that it's gonna be playing at. So
I would find it impossible to believe that there won't be somebody to pick this up somewhere. I mean, just out of a sense of wanting to get it seen.
right.
A couple other movies I want to mention real quick though, and obviously that movie has had a lot of. It's very self-indulgent. It's like. Literally, we're talking about Francis Ford Coppola
In any era.
but
Yeah.
especially making a movie outside of studios altogether off of his wine company. If you don't expect that to be self-indulgent, you are literally brain dead.
Well, I hate to use
So-
this term too, but a lot of that kind of stuff was thrown around by fairly middle-brow critics,
Yes.
anyways, that are not gonna really.
Yeah, some other movies that premiered there that were not in competition. Furiosa, we're going to talk about that in a bit. So, Horizon and American Saga, we're going to talk about that in a bit. The new Guy Madden film, Rumors, actually his first movie to ever show at Cannes. Can you believe that?
Which, yeah, we were talking about that. Seems pretty shocking.
But that, have you heard what that movie's about?
I don't think I have
Yeah, it's
really.
pretty
Oh,
nuts.
yeah. It's
It's
like about like an international.
Yeah, it says world leaders
Yeah.
meet at G7 but get lost in the woods whilst trying to compose a joint statement on an unspecified global crisis. Beset by thick fog and menaced by undead bog bodies and a giant brain, they navigate the tortured passions between them.
Wow.
And it has Kate Blanchett, Alicia Vikander, Charles Dance, Denis Minochet, Roy Dupuis, so yeah, just like a lot of random people in it, but like literally what? Like,
Yeah.
But anyway, and then also there's another one I was looking at here. Oh, did you hear about this movie, The Surfer, with Nicolas Cage in it?
Yes, I did.
It looked
yeah.
kind of weird, a psychological thriller.
Yeah.
He's literally Nicolas Cage as the Surfer. But anyway, so yeah, there's a lot of other interesting movies that showed that. I'll be interested. To see
Also,
some.
should be mentioned that the honorary Palme d'Ors this year went to Meryl Streep, Studio Ghibli, and George Lucas.
Yeah.
Which we're going to be talking about soon with THX
Yeah.
1138. I don't know if you followed some of the comments that came
No.
out of his.
What did he say?
He was being his kind of normally cranky self and was like saying some things. He did say he thought, quote, artificial intelligence filmmaking was inevitable. It's like saying, I don't believe those cars are going to work. Let's just stick with the horses. He's obviously always been somebody who's at the forefront of technology in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Is this quote, well, we've been using it for 25 years, and it's not AI, but we all use the digital technology because we pioneered a lot of that, because especially at ILM, we were the only place that was doing digital. But the thing of it is, it's inevitable. I mean, it's like saying, I don't believe these cars are going to work. I'm just going to stick with horses. Let's stick with the horses. And yeah, you can say that. That's not the way the world works. And so he, obviously he's kind of out of filmmaking in terms of being somebody who's making things that are being seen at a commercial level. But again, he had a lot of other kind of cranky quotes. He called out some people who criticized movies of his in the past and whatnot. So
Okay.
we'll talk about the arc of George Lucas in a roundabout way yet again.
Yeah.
Was very soon. You'll be hearing us talk about. But yeah, Cannes Film Festival.
Also, some movies.
Maybe
that,
one day.
Yeah.
Overlapping Dialogue. We'll have a series of podcasts from the Cannes Film
That would
Festival.
be interesting. Some movies that were shown as re-releases there. Also, I wanted to mention Army of Shadows, the Jean-Pierre Melville film. Gilda, Johnny Got His Gun. That Napoleon film
From the 20s,
I think they had a new version of that maybe. Paris, Texas,
That's the 40th anniversary of that.
Shanghai Blues, Seven Samurai, some Gian Maria Volonte film called Slap the Monster on Page 1. Sugarland Express. I know
a lot
that's
of
getting its
anniversary
50th,
movies, it sounds like, yeah.
And The Umbrellas of Cherbourg also.
Yeah.
But, yeah, just to mention that. And then they also had actually some other ones, After Hours, Armor of God 2, Operation Condor, that Jackie Chan film. Porco Rosso, Phantom of the Paradise, supposedly. And Train Spotting, there was a restoration for that. I know, that was like the first day.
Yeah.
So, yeah, lots of fun going on there, it sounds like. But, oh well. I'm going to have my own film festival at work here in a week or two when I don't have anything to do.
Speaking of cinema, Ryan Reynolds.
Let's talk about Ryan effing Reynolds.
Now, I've hated this guy for years.
Yeah.
I'm trying to even think when the first time I really... Oh, I could tell you when it was, when I was like, no, not this guy.
Okay, you do this, and I'm going to ask you a question, so go ahead.
A couple of questions.
Yeah. I don't know what the hell you're talking about, man.
The moment in the Green Lantern trailer where he, like, moves his ring and it becomes his suit, and his like roommate or whatever's like, what? And he's like, I know, right?
Oh,
I
yeah,
remember being like, oh my god, die.
This was after Van Wilder at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I'm really not trying to be over the top.
So yeah,
here.
my question is, and
Yeah,
you're about that. No, you're about to answer it. So my question was going to be, what is it that you hate about Ryan Reynolds? Go. What you were literally
He is
saying.
the distillation of everything smug and faux sincere in our culture right now that I hate and despise with a passion, because his whole public persona is someone that's like, oh, I'm meta. I know I'm like in things.
And no,
that
you're
are
not
like,
Facebook. By the way,
or Meta Armstrong.
Yeah.
I'm like existing outside of. I know all these things I'm doing are stupid, and I'm taking the paycheck and ha ha at you for paying for it. I cannot think of a worse attitude to have. I just hate and despise him with a passion. I did give the very first Deadpool movie a fair shake because I was like, I'll just check this out and see. Didn't like it as I kind of sort of expected. Have not seen Deadpool 2. Deadpool and Wolverine are getting ready to come out next month, or in July, I think it is. Will not
I
be
left that
seeing,
off the summer preview list.
will not be seeing this movie. But then he has that persona. But then he has this side persona of being in like family-oriented movies, like If. Which bombed.
Thank God.
Where
True
he's,
win.
I was frankly
John
shocked.
Krasinski's another total hack.
Well, yeah, he's
not now. He's not as bad.
Yeah, he's a step below there. I've got things I could say about him too. He actually
Well,
tried to
Mikhail
adapt.
Hanukkah has some things he could say.
He actually tried to adopt David Foster Wallace years ago. He did brief
Adapt.
interviews with.
I thought you said, or second you said adopt. I was like, well, that would be interesting.
He failed as a parent, if that's true.
Right. He was going to do brief history or brief interviews with hideous men.
Yeah, he did do that. He made a.
Oh no, he did. Right?
He
Yeah,
made a movie out of that.
Yeah, and everybody was like, "We don't care."
Yeah, out of your depth, sir.
Right.
But then he did like. Okay, so then he also. Don't worry, Ryan. We'll be back to you in a second.
Vapid Dreamland.
That when COVID happened, he created that whole like Krasinski created that whole like happy news. The news that people don't want you to hear about, like feel good news, like this video series he did when COVID was going on. Do you remember this at all?
No.
Okay, so he like did this little
It sounds vaguely
series
familiar.
for a while, and it was like going for this kind of. Now I actually overall like The Office, but that kind of glossy plastic sincerity that a show like that tries to give off.
It's interesting to call it
that
so
he
sincere,
is
but I know what you mean.
He is a product
Right.
of that world and that sphere, anyways. And
he is a product of his environment, not as Frank Costello.
But then it had
wanted
like
to
all
be.
these like celebrity cameos of like coming on and doing the
because
feel good
nobody
news.
had anything to do.
Yeah, that and then no, this is the kicker. But
Yeah.
then he like sold it for the idea for like several $1 million, and then
What
nothing's
happened to
been
it?
done with it since. It's like, but then he just totally sold out and gave it away. Oh, feel good about that, I guess, right? And so, anyways, Ryan Reynolds, I just cannot stand this guy, and it really just reached its apex recently, with this like reading of this voiceover that.
Yeah, can I say that I'm not really sure what this is for?
So like, there's actual video that exists of Deadpool in costume saying this.
Yes.
And that also points out that how much of the stuff is recorded after the fact and then put in the Deadpool body. Or,
well, it's like what they did
character.
with this is different, but Pedro Pascal in The Mandalorian.
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
it's like he's not even in the suit. So
he recorded this. I don't know what you want to call it, like this kind of little thing as the Deadpool character where he's talking about why you should go see the new Deadpool movie. Like, wrong thing. That's a Norm Macdonald clip. Hold on just a second. Somebody who actually had talent.
Yeah.
Here we go.
We're very excited to be joining you July 26th. Many of you are very excited, but we should set the table correctly. This film is as paper-thin as a sequel to Battlefield Earth. We're mostly going to beat each other senseless, make enemies with Disney, tell a few dick jokes, make a few jokes at my expense, make a lot of jokes at Hugh's expense, and completely sidestep Marvel's mandated after-credit sequence, which, if you haven't figured it out yet, is always just a commercial for another movie, which will invariably end with a commercial for another movie. So sit back, relax, let us lower your IQ and raise your heart rate while we travel to a vapid dreamland, a place where grown men and grown women walk around in tights and act like it's not a giant cultural cry for help. This is cinema.
So Levi and I have been kind of watching this for a few days now.
I can't get it out of my mind.
I've said my. I mean, I'll have more to
Yeah.
say, but I've essentially said my piece about why Ryan Reynolds is a useless piece of trash, and I don't even mean that in the least bit sarcastically. How do you respond to that and to him in general?
I'll speak a little bit on him in general, and I'll co-sign most of what you said. I'm going to jump over to what everybody by now is going to assume I'm going to talk about, which is his Wrexham whole persona. Which is like what you said. It's like he's got this cynicism of himself and his self-awareness, and everything sucks, and it's like, yeah, well, if you're in it, yes. I suppose to him everything sucks because he lives his own life and everything about him sucks, that it's like,
yeah, maybe that's,
it's hard
that's
to like get out of that, you know?
Yeah.
But that I think ultimately
he also got married at a plantation, by the way. I just want to say that too.
Oh, I forgot
Him and Blake
that.
Lively did, yeah.
Oh, that's
we
good.
didn't know.
Yeah, I think they
We're
said
so
that after the fact,
sorry.
didn't they, or something?
Yeah.
Screw that. Yeah. Like, what, you can't look it up? Like, what was it called? We gotta look this up now. Hang on. So I'll let you do that.
I'll do that. Yeah.
So anyway, I mean, I'll co-sign most of what you said. But yeah, he's lived this whole lifestyle of like, looking through everything. Oh, everything's trash, and like, I know that, and like, and blah 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 blah. Right. But then, okay, so part of what you said, so there's the whole, like, family aspect.
Boone Hall Plantation in Mount Pleasant.
It's literally called Plantation, right?
Yeah.
So they just didn't read the last
which
part?
has 9 slave cabins referred to as, quote, Slave Street. Did that not ring a bell when you were like, wait a minute. I know he's Canadian, but still, you think they'd heard something about it. That's all I'm saying. Blake Lively's American, so she should have known.
This ain't like Sergio Leone having opinions about the Civil War, okay? This is like, you're not that far away, you know what I mean? Like, yeah. That like, with this whole Wrexham thing, I mean, they have that show, highly successful.
Him and the guy from It's Always Sunny.
Right, that's another problem.
Yeah.
There's this whole, and that show's highly successful mainly based on the fact that they two were in it. They bought the team, and they're like trying to foster the team along. Team's been very successful. It's slowly climbing up the championship rankings of through the leagues. It's eventually probably going to hit at least the championship league, which is just below Premier League. Yeah. I don't know really what I will do when that happens, when it makes it into the Premier League. I don't know if it's going to be so terrible that you will hear silence from me, or I will create an entirely other, not only podcast, but persona to hate this.
Yeah.
And let me be clear, it's not even...
Let's set the table.
Yeah, we need to set the table correctly. And we'll get to that video in a minute, because I have a lot of thoughts on that. But I'm not going to say that it's not Ryan Reynolds who I'm mad at, because it is him. He sucks. He's awful. I hate him. Right. But also, it's the cult that has come up around him over the past decade or so. And the And I don't believe in conspiracy for the most part. I think everything is actually way simpler and way more obvious than that.
Right.
That things just kind of suck, right? Because we live in a world that was created by God and ruined by men, and therefore we live in a world that is, you know,
Wow, he's really
savage.
taking us to a
right.
philosophical place, huh?
But so I think people look too far into conspiracy sometimes, right? Because it's like, no, everything just sucks and
We
everything's
talked
just
about
obvious.
this back on the JFK episode.
But it's like, no, everything's just obviously bad. So whatever.
Yeah.
But in that case specifically, with the Wrexham going up, it almost feels like a conspiracy. They're being so successful, right? But
do you
then
think that more of that, and I'm not saying that's not true, but do you think it has to do with that they might have just scouted the right team that was going to have
yes,
this upward
that,
momentum?
and also when you just get a lot of money involved and when you get a lot of attention on a team, you can get better players that way too.
Right.
So it's a self-fulfilling plan, right, or self-fulfilling kind of idea. But it is kind of strange how quickly they're coming around and kind of figuring themselves out. However, so they have this show about that, and in the show you see all these ads where they're like, "This is probably the best thing I've ever done. It's just the fans are just so great, and I'm gonna cry." Like, and he does this whole persona, right? And it's like, how can that be the same person who does this?
Deadpool,
right?
Yeah.
And it's essentially that the devil has many guises, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the devil does walk among. I mean, it's literally like what that guy from Game of Thrones said in the trailer for Last Voyage of the Demeter: "The devil is real." Like, and he is living in Ryan Reynolds' body. Yeah. Essentially, is what I'm saying, because that I think is the issue, right, with the world in so many ways is that, like you said, it's this like faux sincerity that's going on, and this idea of, oh, we're going to be really crass and awful, but really we're good people at heart. It's like, no, you can't really have both. You need to have one or the other. And so that's all.
It's very strange that somebody who's doing something profane is trying to be all things for all people.
Right.
I just because in my mind, somebody who first of all, I don't like the character Deadpool. I don't care about the character of Deadpool on a fundamental level. So just take that with a grain of salt with what I'm about to say. The real person who would be best to play Deadpool and what it is would be somebody, and I don't like the punk rock world all that much, or like its ethos or a lot of things about it, but it would be somebody who's angry, confrontational, resents the fact that this is being made by Disney. Eventually would, like, halfway through making the second movie, would have a freak out on set and would walk out and want nothing to do with any of this. It wouldn't be the total sellout hack that he is. I mean, you know what I mean? It's just like this. So everything about all this is such a contradiction of terms that is just so frustrating to me. He and a lot of other people have been so butthurt by all the, every once in a while somebody has to trouble Martin Scorsese with, what do you think about comic book movies? And literally one time he was like, oh, I don't really think that they're actual cinema. They're more like theme park rides. That has now been taken out to be mushroomed to, big proportions. Speaking of Coppola, I don't even know what he said about him years ago. He said, I thought Marty was being generous or something like that. He said, I think he either said despicable or disgusting or something like that. It was even worse than what he said. And so, this whole...
The difference there being, of course, is that Coppola is not actively making films that, number one, are released, or number two, are, applying to the public in any way. So that's why Scorsese has been made the poster child for that, because he still makes movies that are seen, and he stands as kind of the patron saint.
And a lot of, stupid...
This is cinema.
A lot of dumb comic book nerds are like, oh, he just makes gangster movies all the time, or oh, he's just some old guy who don't know what he's talking about. And it's like, you wouldn't expect any kind of worthwhile film opinion for these people anyways. So, Ryan Reynolds, he really is just, and, I would say the Antichrist, but the fact that we're even identifying, and there are other people online on film Twitter that also think he's garbage and
Bill
scum.
Ryan, I saw tweeted something about this.
But we thought, what better way to commemorate his garbage than to create a new, almost anti The Immune, which is our Hall of Fame kind of great do-gooders of society or of cinema with the enemy of the state, enemies of the state. And Ryan Reynolds, congratulations. You are our very first enemy of the state of this podcast.
It's like the Razzies, but with more venom, you know?
Yeah, right. Now, one day we will, we kind of
And I don't mean Eddie Brock. I mean the mood, right?
Yeah.
Eddie.
Like, like
a turd.
If we had come to this conclusion a while back, well, we've hated him for a long time. Don't get me wrong on that. But like, we would have had a sound clip prepared for, Enemy of the State. We will have one done in the future. But congratulations, Ryan Reynolds. You are Overlapping Dialogue's
based off of
Enemy
this
the State.
video, which we need to talk about more in depth here. So, what are your thoughts on this immediate, just shotgun blast ideas? Go.
Well, it was very telling to me that it was all like, because he acts like it's all off the cuff. Like, all the stuff, and it's all off the cuff. How carefully orchestrated it all is, which makes it even more pathetic.
Because you can't speak that quickly and it be made up, right? Like, it's just impossible. So I'm thinking he had to probably do 5 or 6 versions of that.
Yeah, and they all had to be written such a way, and like, and there's a certain like inherent cleverness is preying on and thinking people are going to have because of how fast it's said. Right. That there's going to be this idea that, this was all just improv. It's all improv, right?
He's literally reading from a phone, by the way.
Yeah, but and so just that like carefully rehearsed, cynical. And again, the whole idea of like, this is all garbage, and I was like, well, then why are you making it?
Right?
Why are you literally dedicating your time to something that's garbage? I guess that means you're garbage. If you're you're the garbage man, is what you are. Like literally, I'm literally as I say it out loud, more and more I'm getting madder. Like, why would you say something's garbage and then dedicate years of your life to it? What does that say about you? Well, what is there else to say? I don't even know. Like,
a vapid drink. But then that's what's funny is the way his voice is so grating and annoying too. That's part of it. Is like how quick it is. It sounds good. It sounds like a good radio voice. That's what's aggravating about it. Like when you actually listen to it, it's like, this sounds very practiced and like,
And listen, but I'm sure people listening to this like, y'all can hate all you want. Look at how successful he is.
Well, then that shows what the problem is.
Well, who cares? I don't subscribe to your ethics.
Murder seems to be quite popular. Enough people do it. So,
but what don't we like about him? That's what I'm trying to figure out.
He really does suck.
I feel like I've said things about Ben Affleck on this podcast before in the negative way,
right.
And I feel like we might have even come to terms with talking about this too, but. Like somebody like him, he tries to stretch himself out and do things that are like, I don't always like, but are like, you know what, like, and you can actually direct some things. They're not necessarily the best things ever, but they're fine.
Actually had good roles, good performances.
I mean, he's had a career. He's actually had a career that I'm not totally in love with, but I'm like, you know what, like,
and he's been very out there, very politically outspoken over the years, and has said things that have not necessarily got him in trouble because Hollywood's very liberal, but has been very prodding and inquisitive towards people about things. Of course, famously with Bill Maher, which I would more agree with Maher and some of the things that were being discussed in that vein. However, he was wanting to challenge people on things, and that I very much respected in that sense. So yeah.
So, anyways, all that's to say is somebody like Ben Affleck, I'm like, you know what? I don't totally love everything you do, but I respect a lot of the efforts you put towards things. I have 0% respect for anything about Ryan Reynolds. Nothing about him. Utter garbage, utter trash. Congratulations, you are.
He's even ruined soccer now too. That's what's great about it. It's like, thanks.
Yeah,
it's like everything I want to get into.
He needs to stay out of the world of pro wrestling. That's all I'm saying. He needs to totally stay away from that world. It's not gonna be good.
You wouldn't even like him as a heel.
No, because
it would be with that whole.
Even somebody like Logan Paul, who I don't really like all that much, he definitely stirs the pot and knows what he's doing. And
he's kind of bred for that. I mean, that's kind of his whole thing.
He's very athletic, actually.
Yeah.
And
I don't like him, but my respect for him has grown even slightly in the sense of, well, he's being successful at this, so I can put up with that.
So I even have respect for somebody like him more than
Oh
Ryan
yeah,
Reynolds.
definitely.
So
Yeah. And Jake Paul, at least he'll just get out there and literally punch people.
him and Mike Tyson have that boxing match coming up. I know in July.
Yeah, Tyson
Hopefully
will,
they both
Tyson
concuss
will
each
literally
other.
eat him alive.
Hopefully they both concuss
Yeah.
each other. That's so mean. Oh well. I think that's it for our news items. Because
Yes.
there's some other stuff. All right. There was a lot of deaths recently. We don't have to spend a whole lot of time on each of these. First and foremost, though, definitely the biggest one has to be Roger Corman. He was one of those guys that for the last few years I'm thinking, wow, he's still alive. You remember how old he was?
He was in his 90s.
Late 90s.
Yeah, I don't remember.
He was 98.
Yeah.
98 years old. He actually only turned 98 back in April. So, he is, as it says here, just read a little bit from the Wikipedia page. The Pope of pop cinema, the spiritual godfather of the new Hollywood, and the king of cult. He obviously was, I don't know if he founded AIP, but definitely he
was big,
he
yeah.
kind of channeled a lot of his work
Producers
through
and-
AIP.
Yeah.
He
And
did,
New World Pictures.
He did direct a lot of movies.
New World Pictures he did create.
But more than that, I think when he died, people pointed out just how many filmmakers made movies under the Corman banner in his productions. Again, he's one of those titans of a certain era of film that's long gone by now. What was your just initial thoughts and reactions to think about what Roger Corman's legacy is?
I mean, everybody's going to say the same things. But I feel like with Corman, I mean, and I've seen, a good amount. I mean, you can't watch a whole lot of like what I would just call Silver Age horror, and not have seen Roger Corman productions. But there still are a great deal I haven't necessarily seen. And a lot of the ones I have, it's stuff that Monty Hellman made, or stuff that early Joe Dante, or Paul Bartel, or John Landis, or Coppola, or even himself. I mean, I think that he made that movie Bucket of Blood in like a couple days or something. I mean, it was some like
that was the whole thing about the Corman
amount,
movies
like,
is that they were made very cheaply, very quickly,
right.
And he made so many of them. And I think that alone speaks to, well, obviously not all these movies are hardly classics,
right?
But it's one of those classic things. You just make so many, that there's going to be the good ones that are.
Right.
That kind of accidentally sometimes even get made out of that.
And of course,
cycle.
Scorsese with Boxcar Bertha as well. I almost forgot.
Just to go through some of these filmmakers that he kind of inspired to work with. First of all, he also handled the U.S. distribution of some foreign films.
Yes.
Like from Fellini, Bergman, Truffaut,
right.
Kurosawa. He mentored and gave a start to many young filmmakers such as Francis Ford Coppola, Ron Howard, Martin Scorsese, Jonathan Demme, Pierre Bogdanovich, Joe Dante, John Sayles, James Cameron. He also helped launch the acting careers of Peter Fonda, Jack Nicholson, Dennis Hopper, Bruce Dern, Diane Ladd, William Shatner, and he also cameoed.
Let's
in
take
lots
that
of
one
things.
back. You can have that back. That's okay. I don't need my money back on that one.
So I mean, and that's just tip of the iceberg because I saw even more names elsewhere. Massive
I mean, I don't even.
talent.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like I don't even know where to start with him. I mean.
I mean, the big thing was he was letting a lot of these younger directors at the time come on and do a little small movies to kind of act as a jumping pad off onto other things. A movie like Boxcar Bertha is hardly among Scorsese's greatest movies, but the fact that it was helped get him to eventually do something like Mean Streets.
John Cassavetes famously said about that movie, "Great, you spent years making a piece of S. Don't do that again." And he was like,
and I know Scorsese's talking about what an important thing
he was like,
for him to hear.
Okay, yes, Mr. Cassavetes.
We've talked about Cassavetes a lot in the past, but he was a titan of independent film in the 70s, and so for him to both compliment you, but also to challenge you to do that was obviously what somebody like Scorsese needed to hear.
But that's the thing is, you can focus a lot on like the Roger Corman aesthetic as far as the films that were made that were clearly not good, right? I mean, you can talk all day you want about that. However, if you think about a movie like, I'll just choose one, Targets.
Yeah.
That is one of the most impressive movies in general that I've ever seen.
A clip of it is in our intro.
Yeah. To be able to... And of course that's due in so many ways to Peter Bogdanovich, right? But
what was brilliant was, especially was like, him taking like the horror movie and looking at like and contextualizing it against the fandom or the fame of Karloff and what that meant at that time, and like that brilliant
in the 1960s, 1970s shooter or serial killer boom in so many ways, and putting those two things together.
Brilliant.
And I mean that's a very like Roger Corman idea in general, right? Because I mean, you'd had his Poe films, which were
that's what he'll ultimately cinematically be
and
most
being made
for.
kind of alongside the era of the Hammer horror films, of taking these kind of older forms of horror and making them more explicit. Now, obviously, the Hammer films were far more explicit than the Poe movies were, but there's still a legitimization of horror in that way, or making it hipper or sexier or whatever you want to call it, like a more easily attainable genre in so many ways. I mean, and even movies that are pretty bad, like Cockfighter, or like just like, wow, they really made that. Like, you just got to think about, and I mean, even not even like it being bad, just like, because that movie is kind of pretty low key bad movie. But the movies like that were just even like made, like how hard that movie and how unjust that movie was.
Well, and the movies like that can always be made more at the margins because there's less money on the line, there's less reputation on the line. That that's where sometimes big artists can come out. I mean, literally, like the first Coppola movies, like Dementia 13. It's like
that movie's not very good, but
and so but I mean, and that talking about the actors too, those talents. I mean, given opportunities to some of those people leads to Easy Rider, which is a flawed. I don't know if masterpiece is the word, but certainly a flawed, important movie. That
a flawed piece of art. It's art.
Yeah, right.
It doesn't matter what it is.
Right.
Yeah, it's art.
So that flawed piece of art gave birth to the new Hollywood, scene.
Right.
And so, along with some movies in '67, obviously, but that those actors and those filmmakers were what, they obviously their individual contributions in some ways are more titanic than what Corman's own as his own filmmaker are, but it's undeniable that a guy who would give that many chances to all those people deserves a good deal of credit and a rich legacy to coast on.
Right. And in the same way, I mean, you think about a movie like The Trip, which is not a great movie,
but it's not great.
Well, no, but I do like. Well, that's what I was going to say. I actually only really have good things to say about The Trip. It's a very obvious movie, right? It feels very much like, okay, The Trip, whatever, right?
Wild Angels is my personal favorite of his.
Oh, and of course you have all the biker movies of the time. Yeah, they were great. I mean, and I haven't seen that actually.
By the way, the poster here says their credo is violence, their god is hate, and they call themselves the Wild Angels. He actually directed that specifically. Also, should be said. Peter Bogdanovich, uncredited screenwriter.
But
one of the great final few lines in a movie ever that got
we want to get free. We want to get loaded, and we want to have a good time.
It's like we want to be free. We want to be able to do whatever we want to do.
I love it. Yeah,
we want to get loaded. We have a good time.
We want to be able to do whatever we want to do. Yeah,
and that whole scene, by the way, there's like they're like amen, praising, but like saying like, yeah, that's right, man.
Yeah, brother. Like, look out, brother. But yeah, with
The Trip.
The Trip. That's a movie, like I said, it's very obvious at the time, but like if you just like sit and watch that movie, it's like you can say, okay, somebody had to make that movie eventually, right? But it's like, but they did it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's like, and you watch a movie like that, and it's not great, but it's like, but it's impressive in so many ways. Like, and it's a movie I think about actually a lot. And just the bravery enough to make a movie like that and say, yeah, we're just going to do this.
Some of those movies, both like something like The Trip and The Wild Angels, that would be a great double feature, maybe even to do one day.
Yeah,
they both have this like rip from the headlines quality of like, we're going to take this thing we saw in the news and make a little quick exploitation movie out of it. And those movies have a weird distinction of both being inspired by the culture, but also inspiring the cultures of those things.
Right.
Like those movies are very important, I'd say. Some of the most important pop movies of the 60s in America, because they depict certain scenes, but also, like, perpetuate those scenes.
Yeah.
And that's kind of a weird yin and a yang they exist in is kind of both, almost between eras and worlds of movies that directly turn the page into a new era and a new world. You know what I mean?
Right.
So,
and to kind of wrap it up here, talk about George Lucas a little bit. He's somebody that's not normally obviously listed as one of like the Corman
acolytes or
right.
disciples. Yeah.
However, he was of Francis Ford Coppola.
Right.
And obviously, we can only really owe the success of George Lucas to George Coppola in so many ways, or George Coppola, George Coppola, of Francis Ford Coppola in many ways, and then you even look, and so Star Wars being its own thing is a Roger Corman product in so many ways, and you can talk about that in the sense of how many influences there are and how many people are influenced by things, and that being very obvious, but. And then you even look at Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith. Those are Roger Corman titles, and he said as much. I mean, he said that at the time. That literally, like, Attack of the Crab Monsters or, like, Revenge of the Creature, which is not... Or, like, not Revenge of the Creature, because that's a Universal thing, but, like, Revenge of the something, or, like, it came from this, it came from that. I mean, it's all very, like, Marvel Comics villain name, like The Thing or the Hulk, or these very like buzzwords, and Attack of this came from this, that. I mean, that's all Roger Corman, and so that having its own imprint, let's say, on that is obvious, I think, in ways that most people don't even think about. But,
and again, he hadn't been active really for a long time, but nonetheless, rest in peace to Roger Corman and all that he brought to cinema. Another person we wanted to memorialize also, Dabney Coleman, who...
Very similar names. Roger Corman, Dabney Coleman.
Yeah,
Harvey Corman.
Yeah.
Like, does it stop? Like
Dabney Coleman, who I most immediately associate with Boardwalk Empire. I know that was a very late movie that he was in. Also, 9 to 5, one of the biggest things he was in. He was always somebody that struck me was good at doing both drama and comedy.
Yeah.
Some other things he was in that were pretty popular. On Golden Pond, which I've still never seen. Tootsie. War Games. A lot of stuff from the 80s. Cloak and Dagger. You've Got Mail. That's from the 90s. They said he was also, I forget, it says, as a voice actor, he's best known for providing the voice of Principal Peter Pickley on Recess. Remember that show?
Yeah, I don't know who
he was the principal on that. But like I said, he just played. What I loved about him on Boardwalk Empire, what was his character's name?
The Commodore.
Oh, I gotta forget. The Commodore. Commodore Lewis Kastner. What a unrepentant SOB he was. And a man so much from another era who was like literally always in these interior scenes in his mansion and resentful of all the change that's happening, and just... He played that so well, so much so that I wondered if that really was who he was, but I don't think so. It seemed like he was a pretty nice guy.
Right.
What were your kind of takeaways thinking about Dabney Coleman?
Well, really just thinking about Boardwalk Empire in particular. I mean, it's such a great villain role.
It's only like on the first 2 seasons.
Right, and to just kind of have that as a foil for Nucky, and to show him ultimately becoming that same person, and having a lot of the same attitudes, and having more guilt about it, obviously, but yeah, that being just such a great role. And I mean, the other movies I had seen him in were also great, but we just wanted to mention him for that especially.
Another one to mention, and I know Levi's going to have probably more to say about this than me, just because he's more familiar with who he is. Steve Albini. Musician and audio engineer, worked with a lot of massive bands, a lot of acts over the years, just to name a few: Nirvana, Pixies, The Breeders, PJ Harvey, Jesus Lizard, Page the Plant.
That's Jimmy Page and Robert Plant, who that was.
But I know he was very instrumental, influential of a certain era of music. What did you take away from him and his legacy when thinking about him?
Well, of course, he was also in bands himself, very famously Big Black, Rape Man, and Shellac. I have not heard very much of that music, but of course have heard a great deal of his production work. Obviously with Nirvana, Pixies. I know one of the biggest great things about Pixies, their first album, Surfer Rosa, he was a producer on. I'd read before about how instrumental he was in that production of that album, and that's such a big album in so many ways, and changing a lot of their ideas and making them better. Also, the Jesus Lizard I had heard recently, actually I think it was right after he died, their album Goat, which is really great, and I haven't heard as much of their other stuff. But yeah, he was somebody that had a lot of, obviously, and to no one's surprise, a great deal of disgust with the popular music industry.
Well, if you work with bands, and I say this out of respect, that are that kind of transgressive,
right,
you're not gonna fit in a
yeah,
in an even place. I don't feel like.
Yeah, I mean,
despite his success,
right,
it seems like.
I mean, it says here that noted for his outspoken and blunt opinions, Albini was critical of local punk scenes in the music industry, which he saw as exploitive. And this is a random, also other thing to talk about. He refused to take royalties on albums he worked on, operating on a fee-only basis. Yeah, I know he was very... he was the kind of guy, it sounds like, pretty much did what he said he was going to do.
Right.
You know. Hang on, I'm looking at some other bands that he produced. Yes, Low, I've heard a little bit of. They're good at... Jawbreaker's actually a band I've never been that crazy about, but anyway, a lot of people would be pissed off to hear me say that, but I don't really care. The Stooges, I know he produced a little bit for. Cheap Trick, Slint, Slint's good. Yeah, just to say that he was almost, I said, always known a little more as a producer than as a musician himself, but I know notably I went looking for some of his, Big Black and some of his other bands he was actually in, and couldn't find them on Spotify, and I was like, of course I can't, because he would have been like, oh no, I don't want that on there or something,
Yeah.
So yeah, that's something I want to get to at some point. Really want to listen to more of. But yeah, he was just very much an interesting guy and very big in a lot of ways. He's like a cool Rick Rubin, I guess, is the way to, because Rick Rubin over the last so many years has had a lot of hate towards him too, and that
I feel like there was a while too where Rick Rubin was not that well known, but then he kind of blew up figuratively, and perhaps literally. And he's become more famous in recent years, but Albini kind of had a more of a cult fandom, which speaks to obviously the bands he was involved with. And the ethos probably of a lot of those groups. So rest in peace to him. He definitely had a huge impact on a lot of people and a lot of music. Paul Auster. Now, I love writers. This is not a writer I actually am all super familiar with, just because I want to he's a contemporary of a lot of people that I really love and like a lot, but I've just not quite read his stuff yet.
And it's the same with me. I haven't read any of his books.
He's most known for some of his biggest things are the New York trilogy.
I've got those books, but I haven't read them yet.
Moon Palace, The Music of Chance. That's a great title. The Book of Illusions, The Brooklyn Follies, Invisible, Sunset Park, Winter Journal, and 4321. Again, he's kind of, I guess, part of a sort of postmodern
New
York author. Right. He's kind of big. He's also a filmmaker too, I believe.
Yeah, he directed that movie and wrote and directed that movie Smoke, and then that other one that both kind of had Harvey Keitel in them.
Blue in the Face,
yeah.
And then he also did two movies, Lulu on the Bridge and The Inner Life of Martin Frost.
Yeah. But yeah, Paul Auster, somebody I haven't read yet. He wrote a lot of books, and I know he was very. He has this video, and this is kind of maybe why I want to mention him in particular, other than just the fact he's a big deal. But he wrote this video, or somebody made this video of him talking about writing and kind of just in general. It's about 20 minutes long.
What's it called?
Let me actually find it. It's and he tells and it's great, the whole thing. And he talks about what a very particular person he is, of how he writes, and he's very he languishes over it, he used to, I think a famous thing he said in that was something about like, you know, that if I write a page in a day, it's good. 2 in a day, even better. 3's a miracle or something. As a writer myself, at least a little bit, I'm like, I don't know. I think if you're being that, if you languish over it too much, it's a little bit crazy to me.
Yeah.
But also, he's a great writer, and I'm not, so whatever. But it's called Paul Auster Interview: How I Became a Writer, from the Louisiana Channel. It's about 17 minutes, and he just talks about what it's like to be a writer and what he does, how he does it. But there's a great story he tells in that, which kind of bookends the whole video on either end of it, about meeting Willie Mays,
player.
and wanting him to sign a baseball. And he said, "Would you have a pen or a pencil?" And he said no, and nobody around him had one. And he said, "Sorry." He said the quote he always remembered him saying was, "Sorry, kid, got no pencil, got no autograph," or something. And he said that from then on, he always carried a pen or a pencil with him, and that's how he thinks he in some way became a writer.
Yeah.
Then he ends the whole thing with the story of finally actually getting to meet Willie Mays years later. Right? Well, I don't know if it was that he got to meet him, or there's an author named Amy Tan who's kind of famous as this Asian American writer that he was friends with, who he had told that story to, and that she said she had some writer friends that live right next to Willie Mays, and that they got him to go and sign that baseball. And he said that he didn't remember it exactly, but that he kind of got teared up and was thinking about how long that had been in the kind of the legacy, I guess, of him finally getting to do it. And he has the ball now signed by Willie Mays, like 50-some, I think it's 52 years after that.
Wow.
And it's just this really great whole story, the way, because he's a writer, he can tell a story, obviously, but the way he, in the video, brings that all the way back around
I've
to
seen
that.
a few little interviews, I feel like, with him. I'm trying to think.
And,
I've been on Charlie Rose.
But he wrote I've seen some of those. Yeah, there's a great, book, The Book of Illusions, that he wrote, I know was a very interesting sounding book that he wrote after 9/11. It was kind of his post 9/11 book. And he talked about what it was like to live after 9/11 in New York, and obviously how that affected him. But that was about a guy that becomes depressed and isolated after his family's killed in a plane crash, and that he basically becomes obsessed with this silent comedy actor named Hector Mann, kind of like any of the big three of Chaplin, Lloyd, or Keaton, and that it becomes about him being obsessed with those movies, and it sounded like a really interesting book. But yeah, that he wrote another book called 4321, which I've always wanted to read. That is ultimately about one man, Stanley Ferguson, and it's about 4 different alternate versions of that man's life, and how they're kind of similar or different, and like basically just about the same character, but in 4 different alternate realities, basically, of his life. And that just sounds like such a great idea. There was actually, I have that book on my shelf, but let me see if I can find it. The opening of that book is one of the best openings of any book I've ever heard. Let me see if I can find it here. I'll read just the first kind of sentence. According to family legend, Ferguson's grandfather departed on foot from his native city of Minsk with 100 rubles sewn into the lining of his jacket, traveled west to Hamburg through Warsaw and Berlin, and then booked passage on a ship called the Empress of China, which crossed the Atlantic in rough winter storms and sailed into New York Harbor on the first day of the 20th century. It's like, I don't know how you make a opening to a book better than that. But I know it's primarily about kind of the 60s and 70s, about like Vietnam era, growing up during that time. Right. And it's probably in a lot of ways about him, but yeah, that's a book I've been wanting to read that he's somebody that is very interesting, has a lot of interesting ideas about life and about writing. And
all the little things I've ever heard about him only make me want to read his stuff, so rest in peace to him. The juice is no longer loose. The juice is now in the ground. OJ Simpson passed away. My initial reaction when I heard this news, I couldn't help but think, I didn't know he could die.
Right, it was like, it was a weird, I felt the same way. It was like a weird, just kind of a stupidity on our part to think that OJ Simpson would be around forever. But it felt like he was so himself in so many ways that, in every bad way, by the way, let me be clear, it felt like he would never die. Like, the idea that O.J. Simpson would be dead never crossed my mind.
It always, right? I was born in 1992, Levi in 98. I barely, in my very earliest childhood memories, remember some of the fallout from the trial that happened. We, of course, know about it since. We've watched the O.J. Simpson Made in America, brilliant documentary. And so I think a little bit more of the younger generation like us who have only seen him in the post-trial years pretty much, he just feels like this painting that's just been in slow degradation but has stayed the same for the last 25, almost 30 years now, just in a room forgotten about and abandoned, but this painting looks the same. And again, for him to finally die is a weird phenomenon because it's like, well, you can talk about how great he was maybe as a football player, but obviously the only thing anyone's ever going to talk about and remember, as frankly, basically makes sense, is him essentially very, very, very likely murdering his wife and Ron Goldman. Yeah. And so, it's weird. It's like when Charles Manson died, it's like somebody that's so notorious. Ooh, do we celebrate this person? And let me just say, Charles Manson never won the Heisman Trophy, so he has even less any garnering of respect that could be even bestowed upon OJ. But again, it struck me as just very weird. It was like I never even thought about it because certain people like a Roger Corman of the world who's been old for a while, and you're deep down thinking about they're not going to be around for forever. Yeah. There's part of me that, like you said, instinctively is like, OJ's just going to kind of live forever and be this weird, annoying person who pops up on Twitter talking about, hospice. One of his last videos talking about, I'm all right. It's like Donald said, can't trust the media, you know. He's in that video. What is there else to say about O.J. Simpson? I don't even know. Especially now we're talking about this even further removed from his death.
It's all about hyperbole here. That's the key. But he's proof that evil walks the earth. You think about somebody who's so self-centered of a person that they literally become so corrupted by their own desire for fame. And the paranoia that a person like that has to live with, right? Which ultimately leads to their violent nature. It's crazy to think that had that not happened, we would have had... The legacy of O.J. Simpson would be very strange in the sense of, O.J., he was that really good running back for the Bills and never won a Super Bowl, and the Bills still never won a Super Bowl.
He was in those Hurts ads.
And he was in some ads, and he was really good. He won the Heisman. He was a commentator. He was in some movies. He was almost in the Terminator. But as we must remember, James Cameron couldn't believe he could be a killer.
I can't remember if it was that or the people funding the producers
or whoever. Right.
And it's like, and then he laughs all the time about that now. Like, look what happened.
But and then OJ showed us who he really was, right? And it's that's the thing I think we lack when we talk about OJ Simpson. Sometimes is we like to think about the media circus. We think about the obvious fact that he did it. We talk about the comedy and the fact that he could get away with it, or the cynicism that he could get away with it, all of the racial and ethnic components that are obvious to the trial, to Los Angeles at the time, to the beginnings of a new era of the lawyer and the defense of crime.
The legal system's very often been a form of theater, and that definitely was that on the maximum level.
But I think we forget to look back to the savagery of the murder and really sit with that, because it's so easy to get lost in everything else. that we forget about. That man did that. And you see the image. I mean, because I'd never seen the pictures of it before, and then it was in the documentary.
Which, wouldn't you agree that documentary feels like the canonical OJ Simpson portrayal?
Definitely. There'll never be another thing like that.
Yeah.
And
if you've not seen that, check that out.
Yeah, and I don't mean to be morbid. I don't want to, but I think we forget about that sometimes, about
the actual
what it
brutality
actually
of what it
was.
Yeah, I agree.
And you see the pictures, and you think only somebody like, that truly is, like I said, in that crime of passion mode, but also that can be truly evil, could do something like that. And that's what's so disgusting about him, I think, is that he continued on, and still lived in the culture, and somebody you couldn't get rid of, right? And it's in fact, I think without much theater, we need to also induct him into the enemies of the state right now.
Oh, wow.
And go ahead and get that over with.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, yes, O.J. Simpson, Orenthal, James Simpson, you have been convicted of being an enemy of the state.
Yes.
2 people in one episode. Wow.
Yes. And I think that makes Ryan Reynolds look even worse, that we have a basically very definitive murderer.
I think that's the only thing I can say about Ryan Reynolds in the positive light. It's like, well, he didn't kill somebody.
Yeah, right.
That we know of. Yeah.
And then that's another thing about OJ, to kind of wrap this up now that he's an enemy of the state. I don't think we need to say more. That he can make you laugh. Isn't that the worst thing of all?
I mean, comedy gold / horror. That whole video of him doing an interview on, I don't remember what it was, and he was like hiding and like acting like he was going to stab the woman interviewing him, and then that face he does, like. And
that is the work of someone who's clearly guilty, because no one who actually didn't do that
would make light of
would
that
joke.
Or do that about that. Well, he always said for years, I'm out there looking for
everybody, and the
killer.
joke was always, he's looking on all those golf courses or whatever people used to say, and
then there's the famous "if I did it" phenomenon, where he was going to write the book of if he did it, how, and that was. I remember as a kid hearing about when that was going to happen, and the media, rightfully so, saying, "Oh my God, this is like so crass, this is awful." And then I think the Goldman family like won a lawsuit where they were going to, like, any versions of that book that make money, they get the money. And there is some criticism that's been made about them over the years about, they're just after money, blah blah blah. Obviously, they're not in the same category as OJ himself.
No. Well, let me be clear. I'm going to defend him. So, to me, I don't think it's so much, and I don't know, but that's those people's child. I'm sure, without a shadow of a doubt, they would give every cent away to have him alive.
Yeah.
So let's just be clear.
Yeah.
To me,
I'm not saying I even totally
no,
agree with
I know,
that.
but to me, I see it more as they are going to pursue him at every avenue to ruin his life.
Right.
Which they did ultimately. I mean, I think they were successful in that. Because,
he did that himself, obviously. But they didn't make it easy for everybody to forget about that.
Well, that's the thing. Like, everybody was acting at the end of all of this about where is the money going to go? What's his will going to look like? Blah blah blah. And I always thought, I was like, there's no way he has a lot of money. I mean, they literally took about everything they could get. You know, rightfully so. And at the same time, I know a lot of people. I think it was one of his lawyers, some new stooge he got, was like, he made sure they would get no money, blah blah blah. And it's like, why are we randomly kicking them while they're down too? But
never forget too that news came out that at his deathbed, his children visited him and they all signed non-disclosure agreements. What the hell is up with that?
I forgot that. Yeah,
and we all know he's not going to say, "Oh, I actually did it there," but this
NDA
the weirdness
Simpson,
and creepiness of all that is just so next level. So wow, we went from not one enemy of the state, but 2 enemies of the state. So.
But no, and let me say that saying all that, that's not to say I'm not utterly fascinated and interested in the whole OJ trial. Everything about that I find fascinating. I wouldn't say I'm a scholar on it, but I'm pretty well versed in everything about it. And that Kato Kalin was made a thing out of that. The Kardashians were made a thing out of that.
Everybody talks about it, but like that trial was like the event show of the decade.
Right.
I mean, everybody who was
The
involved.
helicopter
became,
pilot became transgender. Like I'm serious, and then even then also Bruce Jenner became transgender. Like, and like I said, not the worst thing ultimately is the murder, but the other thing that's worst about that is that the Kardashians became a thing.
Cost Norm Macdonald his job at SNL. I mean, again, that whole trial made everyone a major character.
Yeah,
you know, and everyone had this backstory.
Judge Ito,
you know,
and
the dancing Itos.
Yeah, the dancing Ito. Yeah, and like, and the fact that I don't really have a whole lot of like necessarily sympathy for Mark Furman exactly, because clearly he's somebody that was a bad seed, bad guy. Was a cop in LA. It turned out though
he was the wrong, the absolutely wrong
right.
guy to go and genuinely investigate something because he had a whole past, which speaks to a lot of the long existing problems that were in the Los Angeles Police Department.
But you watch him in the documentary. Like I said, I don't want to like have a whole lot of sympathy for the guy, other than being a Christian who tries to have sympathy for most people, you know. But that Mark Furman in that documentary, you can clearly tell, is like, yeah, my life has been ruined, and I'm literally exist only in this vein anymore, and there's just something I remember about watching him in that, just the utter sadness of that man. I just think about a lot, and like I said, I don't necessarily want to preach a whole lot of sympathy in his case exactly, you know?
Yeah.
But I think about him sometimes, and I'm like, man, what a shame that whole person is just the way they are, and it's just, like I said, that everybody lost in that whole thing, and it's just... Other than OJ, I guess. But
I think the best way to sum all this up, I forgot about this till just now. The James Elroy book, Crime Wave, he talked a little bit about the OJ Simpson case. And if you're thinking about Los Angeles crime, you're like, oh, what does he have to say?
Don't forget also Robert Shapiro still hanging on to life at age 81.
I was going to say, I know.
Because literally most of those lawyers all died of like cancer in some form, and he hasn't got there yet.
But Bill Ryan tweeted after OJ had died, excerpt from Crime Wave, that book, and I was like, oh, and I was instantly, oh my God, this was when Elroy was at his
I've
height
got that
in the
book
90s.
actually, but
like,
I haven't read
what
it.
would he have said or thought about it? I'm going to probably censor a thing here and there. You know, we're talking about James Elroy here. The defense team's probably thinking they can sell the hotline tapes for big bucks. The LAPD's probably wishing they framed some random pervert for the job. If OJ is guilty, he should cop a plea behind exhaustion. His 2,033 yards in one season rate bupkis when compared to his post-football sprint. Second-rate acclaim and the purpose of empty pleasures wear a guy out. Beating up women is a young man's game. Attrition narrows your choices down to changing your life or ending it. Change takes time. It's not as instantaneous as a few lines of coke or some fresh female body part, I'll say. Suicide takes imagination. You've got to be able to conjure up an afterlife of visions of rest or be in such unbreachable pain that anything is preferable to your suffering. OJ went out behind a chicken-S end run. He didn't have the soul or the balls to utilize his first two options. James Elroy, December 1994.
Yeah.
So, again, rest in piss, O.J. Simpson, I guess.
Yeah.
Like, all right.
That's why I realized I had put R.I.P. and not rest in peace, was because O.J. was waiting all along, and I didn't know
also, Levi, in our little outline, wrote, as he said earlier, LOL beside his name.
Well, that's real life. Kevin Nash, OMG, thought he was dead, LOL. Yeah, but anyway.
But it's not you that's dead. It's just your career that's dead, right? You know. All right, now, the meat of the program.
Now, speaking of, evil in America, we're
going to go through now, and I don't know how long we're going to spend on each of these.
we'll spend longer on some than others, I'm sure.
Yeah. Some of the big releases that have come out over the last really month and a half. Civil War. This was the latest film from Alex Garland, who has had a little bit of a up and down run of late. I feel like there was a moment, I don't know exactly when it was, where Film Twitter decided to hate on him for whatever reason. I will say we were not fans of Men,
no.
His movie he made right before this.
I feel like most people liked Annihilation.
Yes. Ex Machina was popular when it come out.
Devs people kind of didn't care about. So I'm guessing it's probably Men is what people kind of...
Which we didn't like either.
No.
And I'm honestly not super interested, actually, to give that movie another shake either.
Yeah, and I mean, and you have to remember...
probably will at some
You have
point,
to remember how long he's been around, and that he had, written 28 Days Later, and that's such a big movie for so many people. And that, I guess people are kind of looking back on his cinema now as in a different light. And this movie is an easy thing to hate on. Let me go ahead and say.
Just to briefly describe, I guess, what it is. Follows a team of journalists traveling from New York City to Washington, D.C. during a civil war fought across the United States between an authoritarian federal government and several regional factions. Cast includes Kirsten Dunst, who's the lead, Wagner
Moura. Or Wagner Moura, yeah.
Kaylee Spaney, Stephen McKinley Henderson, Sonoyo Mizuna, I think that's how you say that, and Nick Offerman. That it's basically, it's about these journalists who are covering a civil war that looks like it could be an alternate version of America, and or a slightly into the future version of America. The think pieces were already primed and pumped before this even come out. And I actually think, weirdly, it was actually slightly kinder on the movie than I expected it to be. Not necessarily that it deserved, because I love the movie, and I'll talk about that in a second. But it was not exactly as divisive as I thought it could be. I mean, there definitely was several weeks of there was, I don't even remember how many New York Times opinion pieces I read about it, and most of them were actually more in a positive light than not. But it's definitely
about
a movie,
journalists, so they're going to be more into that.
Yeah, well, that too, honestly. But it's actually not a conventional war film. It definitely is about these journalists who are covering it, and in a weird way is way more about the ethics of journalism than it is left versus right in America in 2024, which I think is what some of the detractors wanted it to be about.
Yes.
As if this movie is going to answer centuries worth of partisan divide,
or foment all this rage either.
Right. Yeah. So going into this movie, I was cautiously optimistic. Levi was more outwardly optimistic than I was, but I was, there were people already crucifying it when the poster came out, and I remember thinking, a classic thing we like to joke about, well, let's see what they do with it. I was like, okay, well, I'll wait and see. I do generally like his work, so I'll give it a fair shake. I think, so far, of all the movies I've seen this year, this is the best film I've seen. I actually slightly prefer, on a personal level, the next one we're going to talk about, but as far as the best movie of the year so far, I would award this to Civil War. Kirsten Dunst has just, I think she's been a good actress for a while, but she just keeps getting better and better, I feel like, and this part is one that is not one on paper you would expect her to lead, and I think she did a terrific job with it. The movie also, I think, excels by being a road movie, so it kind of takes them across different parts of the East Coast.
The northern East Coast,
and I actually did, there is part of me that was morbidly but how did this all come to be? But it kind of pitches it in this, the forces that are on the momentum, are fighting against what's clearly this despotic, tyrannical, authoritarian leader.
The Central American government,
played
by Nick Offerman,
by Nick Offerman, and some of the cachet he brings to the table by being, Ron Swanson from Parks and Rec, or just his general persona, which I think he both kind of plays into, but also he kind of resents in a weird way as far as this libertarian guy. But, the movie, especially the movie's final moments, which we can maybe get it more into later and spoil and maybe talk about, really turns the guys on, wait a minute, am I rooting for this to happen? Or the complicity that I feel in rooting for this.
Yeah.
And I also felt, too, that this movie could have been made in another country and been made about, some third world African country that's suffering from this, fall, and the journalists are coming over there and getting involved with it, and us, But to take what that story would have been and setting it in the United States makes us look definitely more inward and makes us question kind of how and why and who we root for in movies like this. So I really loved it. Levi's even more enthusiastic about it, though. And so far, I think this is the best film of the year. Even though there's one or two I might slightly prefer to it on a personal favorite level, but I definitely think this is the best movie of the year. And I'm going to link, Levi wrote a really good little blog about it that I'm going to put in the show notes for this. Where do you want to begin talking about this movie for you?
I don't want to brag, but I predicted it, folks, and here we are.
You're on the right side of history.
Yeah, well,
history.
And I'll go even further, and I've said this to great consternation among fellows. I think this is the best movie made in the world since COVID, bar none.
I think it's. I would personally say I think it's up there. I think Beau's Afraid for me still holds the crown
I think
for that,
the ambition of that is bigger. But there's those movies you see every so often that you wonder, like, have I ever seen anything like this? And the answer is typically no when you even ask the question, right? But
because cinema's so young still,
right?
And there's so many new things to say.
And I can think about this in a lot of different ways. You talk about how loud the movie is. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But and the soundtrack being as great as it is, I have a couple things to say particularly about that. But like you said, it's this sense of, and even talking about it being about journalists and not really about the Civil War itself, also about what you mentioned about it could be just an African nation or wherever. I think the most telling image in the entire movie is something that sticks with me. I literally can't get it out of my mind. Is towards the opening of the movie where she's like laying in a bathtub and she has this flashback to previous Kirsten Dunst's character, previous wars or things she's been in where she's been a photojournalist, and there's a moment of a guy with it's probably, I think it implies it's like in Haiti or Jamaica somewhere, of this man who's got a tire around him and they literally set him on fire. Yeah. And it just shows it kind of in slow motion. And I feel like that is the moment in the movie where it's saying this is not about America or about why we're in the Civil War, why we are in the real world right now in such this divisive partisanship, right?
Especially in the post-January 6th.
Right.
America,
it's just very simply about cataloging human evil, right? And what does that do to a person? Do it
passively or actively, or
And then also not to make it too heady, but what does it say about us that we're sitting here watching this, thrilled by this, right? I mean, it's a similar question of Beau's Afraid, right? The question of that at the end by saying, "Wait a second, you were watching this the whole time. Were you into this, or did you feel? How do you feel towards this person? And what is your complicitness in this, right?" And and there couldn't have been a better decision to make this movie into that, to also make the movie literally just above an hour and a half.
Yeah, it's fairly short
and very breezy, and it doesn't care very much about
and there's some world building between the lines,
right.
But it feels very specific and focused, I would say.
Right. I mean, and even another famous image in the movie, like I said, I don't want to be too pretentious talking about this, but there's a moment where it's at the beginning of the movie kind of talking about why this is going on, and there's this great shot of a window. It's in New York City, or maybe it was in Hoboken. I can't remember where it was, but it was in basically New York, metropolitan area, of out the hotel window, and this big explosion in the background. But then the map of the fractured United States from the TV is like mirrored on reflected on the glass, and it's almost like he's immediately saying, "Don't worry about why this is happening. It's happening, and you're going to have to deal with it as a viewer. That this is what is happening to these people, right?"
Yeah.
And that really the movie is about that always, and the question being about even thinking in the moment. When you see these things happen, and it takes a second to, because there's that, the first real kind of sort of battle scene in the movie, which there aren't very many of the young girl taking that photograph of the guy. They dragged him over behind the wall, and he's bleeding out, about to die, and she took this photograph of it happening in black and white.
That to me was one of my favorite sequences in the movie.
Yeah,
I
that's
think.
really great. And of Kirsten Dunst saying that's a really great photo, and it's like you have to stop immediately and think, what makes this great to you? You know what I mean? And we can say that too about, you see the power of the image, right?
Yeah.
But then you have to step back and think, wait, why is this great? Why would we even classify this as a great photograph based on what is literally in it? Or even I think one of the best photographs of the movie is the one at the beginning where she's taking pictures of all the dead bodies after that suicide bomber explosion at that water protest. And there's a picture that the girl takes of her taking a picture of all the bodies, right? And that's I feel like actually the picture of the movie is saying, like, even us watching somebody else do this thing, and what's, and all this is very obvious. I feel like the movie's very obvious about a lot of these things.
Yeah.
So, and a lot of people probably didn't like that about it either. But I think that's a far better decision to actually ask these questions through that rather than to make it about a civil war in America.
Well, it really kind of takes the politics out of it in terms of, this is representative of Trumpism or the left, or it just very much kind of strips that bare. And kind of shows you also there's a certain aspect of war after so long where it's not about who believes what, that it's just about this force against this force. And the sometimes empty partisanship of that occurs in war after so long, especially.
Right.
Maybe in the beginning people had reasons for doing what they're doing, but eventually it's just about pure survival after a point,
Yeah, and there's that the scene that's kind of the scene of the movie in so many ways is the Jesse Plemons scene where they're burying all those dead citizens.
Yeah.
And it's like some militia that's pro Offerman government.
Yeah.
And the whole point of that scene, because I feel like that's the scene people are going to take in different, whatever your political opinion is going to be confirmed or denied by that scene.
Yeah.
And I think what that scene's really about, because it's about him asking, what kind of American are you? And then even, of course, the obviousness of, the Chinese guy, he just shoots him immediately. He's like, well, you're not even American at all, so I'm not even going to, deal with, very racist and nationalistic worldview. But what that scene's really about is saying, you think you're a journalist and you can just, step outside this whole thing, but no, you are implicated in what we're doing.
Yeah, right.
And you are, the man is not an island kind of thing. Like, you have to be a part of this whether you want to or not, and kind of being held hostage to that notion. And even that is an implication towards us, too, about that idea of, you can kind of observe, you can't really be an observer, more or less is what it's saying. You have to be a part of this, and we don't care whether you like that or not, kind of attitude. And that's really what the movie's all about. And the movie makes it into the basicness of it is making it about, are you an American or are you not an American? But the real, like I said, I think what that's really about is saying you are not an observer. Right. You are a part of this reality, right?
Yeah, right.
And to speak otherwise, it just a flawless movie as a production. I've been thinking a lot about the soundtrack. People have been talking about it. If you notice, a lot of the songs are about dreams, or they talk about something being about this dream or that dream, which is funny because obviously it's all a nightmare anyway. But the greatest moment in the whole movie, I think, ultimately is the Stephen McKinley, and this is I guess we're entering into spoiler territory. We can kind of talk about the ending. But the Stephen McKinley Henderson dying after he's been shot from saving them, and it's the Sturgill Simpson song "Breaker's Roar." But that is like one of the most flawlessly chosen soundtrack drops in any movie I've ever seen, of like him dying on the way to the camp, and then he's dead when they get there, and that the song reaches the chorus of saying it's all a dream, and there's that great moment of Wagner Moura standing over just screaming when all the soldiers just walking by, not even caring what's going on with him, but him in grief over Stephen McKinley Henderson's death and screaming while that chorus is playing, and just that being so confrontational and very morose and morbid. I think is the whole movie ultimately is really about that kind of idea. Yeah, just so many things to say about it, I guess. But you what did you want to say about the ending? I guess because that's kind of what.
Well, again, just that Offerman's character, the president, is executed, and before that, he's asked if he wants to get a quote from him, and he simply says, "Just don't let them kill me." And then he's like, "All right, well, whatever." And then that quote will do, and then he's killed. And then over the credits, we see the various photos that they take with his corpse. What was the song that played over the credits?
It was another Suicide song, that band Suicide, who I've never been a fan of because their music scares the hell out of me. But they did that song Frankie Teardrop. They were a big deal for a lot of like synth and new wave music in the 70s. But yeah, it was a song of theirs, and it sounded more like normal of a song.
And again, like that idea of like, okay, well, I'm glad this guy's gone, but like now it's rubbing my face in the ugliness of what all this is, which is ultimately the whole point of the movie. It did do okay at the box office. It had a budget of $50 million, which I think is the designation of being the highest budgeted A24 movie, which previously Beau Was Afraid had. It made $112.9 million.
I know this movie had to have a big budget for advertising, though.
Yeah, so it probably broke even or maybe slightly lost a little bit. But A24 movies usually have a pretty good margin of success. It is one of those movies that I think people had a lot of preconceived notions of going into, and I don't think if you're being fair and honest, it didn't really check a lot of those boxes because it's doing something a little more different.
Yeah, and I can say about the ending also, great third act. I mean, just as because a lot of people would think, oh, there's not a whole lot of action in this, and then the last literally 20 minutes is like flawless. But that specifically, they said, yeah, you feel that sense, and we've talked about this idea a lot, but that the how a movie can take you to a place emotionally, like what we've talked about with Heaven's Gate, of the feeling of this feeling of hatred or anger, or like this release that has to be had through violence, and watching a lot of that, feeling this intensity and this true longing to get to the Oval Office and to just get him, it's hard to generate in a movie. That's actually pretty difficult.
I would agree.
So that's a big plus, and that the decision to pretty much kill off everybody in that situation by the rebels is, we're on their, like I said, we're on their side, but it's like, but what they're doing is also totally barbaric and evil. It's just really great in a lot of ways of asking even these questions at all of a movie that, normally you would think, oh, it's not even going to ask those questions. It's like, no, that's the movie. Is that the whole
It is a movie that I think weirdly would probably appeal more to Red America than Blue America.
It would, I think. And that's what we mostly saw when we went, because I went to see it twice, and it was a lot of older people in the second showing that I went to, because it was in the middle of the day. It was like early afternoon. Yeah. And, you could tell it was appealing to that sensibility more than the left. Mm-hmm. But, yeah.
So that's Civil War. Is it still playing in theaters at all?
It barely was last week. I don't know if it still is or not.
It'll be on home video or VOD soon, I'm sure. So check that out. Again, we'll probably be giving out some awards for that movie by the end of the year. I want to see it again anyways, so check out Civil War. Challengers, another big release. The latest film from Luca Guadagnino, stars Zendaya, Josh O'Connor, Mike Feist. Centers around the love triangle between a failed tennis star turned coach, Zendaya, her low circuit tennis player ex-boyfriend O'Connor, and her tennis champion husband Feist, across 13 years of their shared relationship, culminating in the latter two's match at the ATP Challenger Tour. This is personally, for me, my favorite movie I've seen so far this year. I do think Civil War is better. But again, we're fans of Luca Guadagnino. And this seems like it feels like, this movie is it had a $55 million budget, made at $81.6 million, so it's underperforming, but literally everything in Hollywood is right now.
Yeah.
That's maybe something we can talk about in the future at some point, if not on this episode later. We'll probably talk about when we get to the summer box office, or summer movie preview probably a little bit. This feels like him, he's made a lot of movies that are far more extreme in their sexuality, but this seems like something that it was inevitable, like, him making a poppier kind of movie. Again, I love this movie. I thought the tennis scenes were really well done. The score is very memorable. Obviously, Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross. I love any movie that's like kind of that can make it about, even beyond being a love triangle, about a trio of people and the kind of the dynamics between them, and they bounce between them. And especially a movie about like athletes where there's this third person who's in the middle of them. I just think that's a really fascinating idea. But also has some, maybe homoerotic things to say about O'Connor and Feist's characters. And Zendaya, there are some scenes early on of her playing tennis, but she's hurt by an injury and kind of sidelined and becomes Feist, her husband in the movie's coach, while also having a past relationship with O'Connor's character. And her like being kind of, in the currency of the movie, the most powerful character, even though she's not actually on the tennis court.
Right.
All these things add up to just a very deeply entertaining movie. That I think in an ideal world, in a healthier film culture, this would have grossed $200 to $300 million.
Yeah, it would have like 30 years ago, I think. I wouldn't even say 20 years ago necessarily, but maybe it would.
So I really love this a lot. Again, especially as somebody who's been more and more impressed by Guadagnino. I really liked his most recent film,
Bones and All.
The cannibal movie he did.
The cannibal movie he did.
Cannibal
movie. It is what it is, but I just think it's funny.
A lot of his movies are about like literally and figuratively like consuming other people, or the obsession with other people, and you kind of subsuming them into yourself.
Right.
And I feel like this, in a sports context, did a really interesting job of depicting that. As someone who's also a fan of Guadagnino, Levi, as you are, what did you think of Challengers?
Yeah, I mean, it's great. This may even seem quick to discuss because it's so clearly great. It just very slickly, and a lot of people use the word slick in a bad way, but very slickly made. I think it's his best, most well-made movie so far. Somebody who's just firing on all cylinders, literally. It feels like you would think with Guadagnino, you would think he would make a little more necessary, and I'm not saying it's not introspective, but he would make a sports movie and it would be like very heady and very not as thrilling or exciting, but it's literally, as much as could possibly be so. And so in that way it's compulsively watchable, it'll eventually be a great cable movie. And other than the fact cable is just going out.
Well, I could see it, though, in general, to use the modern parlance of today, a movie that ends up on streaming that people either didn't know about or didn't care to see in the theaters and go, I'll watch that now, and then it become there's a lot of movies that have already started to get second lives because of that. So doesn't do a lot for like box office or ancillary revenue for the movie itself, but that's the world we're living in right now. And part of the crisis of movies in general, that system is kind of falling away. But again, I do think it's a movie that people are going to come back to and discover. Yeah. And Zendaya is definitely on a run right now, too, as far as the terrific work she did in Dune movies, and then now with this. Yeah. I mean, I feel like this kind of definitely confirmed her as one of this era's premier movie stars, and Chalamet's doing his own version of that.
And, I mean, it's obvious, too, but my favorite scene in the movie is the one where her and Josh O'Connor get into an argument that kind of proves to be their breaking up scene. And it's shot of them moving around the room, going back and forth, and the music's very intense. And it's almost like it's literally a tennis match. Like they're throwing back and forth barbs at each other of, I'm going to insult you this way, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to say this, and I'm going to say... I mean, it's just very genius. That I kind of realized that while I was watching the scene. I was like... And I nodded. I was just like, nice.
I think out of the three, I think O'Connor gives my favorite performance of the movie.
He's so great in everything I've seen.
He's obviously in The Crown, which we've seen. He's plays Prince Charles. Charles.
What's his name?
King.
Charles. Yeah.
King Charles now.
But what bloody hell else is new? Yeah, he's really great in everything I've seen him in. I know he was in that one movie. I can't remember the name of it now. Well, he was in that movie La Chimera, which showed at Cannes last year, which is going to be a big, which I know a lot of people like. I've really been wanting to watch. Let me see what the names of the movies are.
It was in Emma back in 2020.
Yeah.
Adaptation of that. You said that.
God's Own Country, I think, was kind of like a queer movie that he was in that I heard good things about. But yeah, that La Chimera I wanted to see since I heard about it at Cannes. Sounds really good. But anyway, yeah, he's really good in everything. I think this will be a good, I really
like Feist a lot too, and he actually I think
really
slightly
good.
takes a back seat in this.
Yeah.
By virtue of the character also being a little more passive, but he really came to a lot of people's attention in the West Side Story remake from a few years ago, and he was really
I really love
that.
the scene of O'Connor and that one lady who he goes to see. That's like he's signing up for the Open that they're in, and he's like literally a guy who's like at his last chance in life, and it's literally like, and then he realizes he's gonna be in it too, and he's like, oh yeah, like boy.
I think what's fascinating is too, and this is a very specific sports dynamic aspect of this movie, that there's a lot of like really great people who are clearly overall a bigger star than this person, but anytime these two people meet, he knows him better than anybody. So there's like a leveling of the playing field, almost to the point where the person who's of a lower status actually has an advantage over the person who's the more established star.
Yeah.
And that happens in a lot of various categories of sports, about that person that came of, and there's this huge star, but then there's this one person who is not as good as them overall and didn't have the career that they had, but for whatever reason knows and understands them in a way that challenges them in a literal, figurative way.
Now, I love the ending, too. I don't want to give it away, but
there's been some people saying that it's not a good ending. The
hell with that.
No,
that's literally not the point of the movie at all.
Yeah,
it's
I think it's a great ending.
Yeah, because also it's like this is kind of giving it away in its own way. But to make a choice is its own bad choice. So I think the choice is to leave it more ambiguous and to be like, literally the whole point of the movie is the last shot of her screaming, "Come on!" Like, it's literally the whole point is she wants to see good tennis. Like,
she's more in love with that than she is
than either people. And it's like, and that's what the movie's about.
And that they deep down have a love that is, I think it would be actually oversimplistic to say, oh, they're like secretly gay for each other.
It's not
that's actually a weirdly reductive way. And love between men is a very complex thing, and in a way it can be with women too, but obviously I'm talking more from a male perspective. That's
masculinity is all caught up in that, which femininity doesn't care as much about that as
and I don't know. Anyways, I think it was a terrific ending, and it was almost, there's an embrace that happens in the last moments between those two characters that is, I think, a brilliant way to.
Yeah, there's been a lot of discourse surrounding that movie here recently over the past week that I think is garbage, and I hope those people, let's just leave it at that.
And I'm a complicated fan of Bill Simmons and the Bill Simmons podcast, and he's had some pretty bad things to say about it, which I'm not surprised because he's got.
Well, he'll have his own fall from grace. Speaking of falls, the Fall Guy. You like that?
Do you
like that segue there? You always hate it when people say, good segue, good segue. Yeah. Like, literally the cavemen wrote a segue in the 2000s. I'm good,
Fall Guy is an action comedy. This, I feel like, was the unofficial kickstart of the summer movie season, as far as when it came out. And it's actually, I know about a lot of older media. I'm actually not all that familiar with the Fall Guy TV show, which is
I
what
didn't
this
even know
is
it was based on.
Loosely based on it.
Did you know, Kyle, that stuntmen are underrated?
Wow, really?
I didn't know that.
That's been a big
my God
discourse the last few years. The plot follows a stuntman, Ryan Gosling, working on his ex-girlfriend Emily Blunt's directorial debut action film, only to find himself involved in a conspiracy surrounding the film's lead actor, Aaron Taylor Johnson. The movie got pretty good reviews and buzz, but now the big talk about it is how financially it has drastically underperformed.
Yeah.
This was put out by Universal, who's been having a really great run over the last several years financially. I mean, again, we can talk about the movie, and I say this as somebody who liked it. I don't know if there's a whole lot to talk about.
No, I don't know.
But this underperforming is in of itself a story.
Yeah.
So, as somebody I'm a big fan of Ryan Gosling in general, and I feel like his movie stardom's been
the better Ryan of the Canadians.
Yeah, by far.
Really? Is it that far?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I agree. Oh, sorry, I forgot who we were talking about.
Yeah. That I feel like his movie stardom's been confirmed after a bunch of years where he was doing a lot of intentionally indie stuff and things that
directing that movie Lost River, which is a movie that might as well be lost to time, which I've always wanted to see, but dang.
And had a musical career that was talking about dead
man's bones, 6 feet deep. Yeah.
So I feel like his movie stardom's been confirmed. He does action. Well, he's not done a whole lot of action. What I meant to say, he does comedy, I think, really well. And so I think there's people say, oh, is he really a movie star? It's like, of course he is. This movie not working doesn't, I don't think, have much to do with that. We don't live in an era anymore where you can just throw Tom Cruise or Tom Hanks' name on something and people go out to see it. Some would say, well, what about the Mission Impossible movies? Like, yeah, but those are more because they're Mission Impossible movies.
Right.
I feel like, even though Tom Cruise's stardom is definitely a part of that. I'm also a big fan of Emily Blunt, too. I think she's actually one of the better movie stars we've created in the last 10-ish years overall. This movie was perfectly fine. I liked it. I had a good time while I was watching it. I'll be honest, I've not thought about it all that much since. And also is a movie that relies on, look at these big stunt work. And again, what Levi was hitting at, this is trying to be this big celebration of stunts in movies. At the same time, I do feel and see a lot of the CGI in this movie. Was directed by Mark Leach, who's known for being...
David Leach, I think.
Oh, excuse me. Yeah. David Leach, I'm sorry.
David Lynch?
He made his directorial debut with John Wick.
Yeah.
He's also directed Atomic Blonde, Deadpool 2, Bullet Train, which we liked, I know, Hobbs and Shaw. But these are all a lot of them are becoming more and more CGI-heavy stunt movies, which is weird because he has a reputation of... He was a literal stunt performer himself. So I think some people would just kind of say, oh, that means there's definitely more fidelity to the stuff here. And again, it's good stunts, don't get me wrong, but don't you definitely feel in the CGI? And then that's just movies in general, I guess, now.
Well, there was more of that, I feel like, with Furiosa, too, but we'll get to that. But
I would actually defend it a little bit when we'll talk about it.
But, no, I agree. But,
I mean, what do you take away from Fall Guys? Fun.
Yeah, it's perfectly good. I mean, I didn't have any problems with it. It was a good movie, fun. But I mean, it's we forget sometimes that not every movie has to be memorable.
So this is the problem with this movie, because I definitely agree with that. But then, like, when a movie that's opening the summer movie season, for all of its faults, we used to have the Marvel movies did this for a long time, and they always open to these massive numbers. Now, a lot of those movies are not especially good. Okay,
and they're not making as much money as they used to.
But at a certain era, 5-10 years ago, when they opened, it was like, oh, the new Guardians of the Galaxy has this number, or the new Iron Man movie has this number, or the new Avengers movie. And it was like, oh, the movies are okay financially speaking. Maybe not creatively, but at least financially speaking. But now a movie like this has the pressure to do that, because, as you said, the Marvel movies have kind of fallen a little bit more by the wayside. I do feel like they're in a slight state of hibernation that they're going to try to... I'm not even saying this is good or bad. I'm just saying they're going to make a slight comeback at a certain point, especially once the Fantastic Four movies and the X-Men movies get cranked up. But anyways, going all over the place. But that, I agree. This should have just been a nice, light, fun movie. One of the problems is, what we just said, the budget of the movie is $125 to $140 million. This movie did not need to be that expensive.
Yeah.
So that's a problem. Inflated budgets. And then again, the pressure of the overall box office not being good puts this undue amount of pressure on a movie like this, that it's got to do so good. And when it doesn't, it's, oh my God, the sky's falling in Hollywood. And again, a movie like this was not supposed to, quote, save Hollywood. It was supposed to just be a Hollywood movie, you know. What do you think about any of that?
Agree with all that. I mean, and that's the problem. The biggest problem is these inflated budgets. It's ridiculous. I mean, it doesn't cost this much money to do this stuff. I mean, it's crazy. Like, it's all these little write-offs, or this person gets this much, or this star gets this much money, or this or that, you know. I mean, and forget about the democracy of cinema. I mean, that's over. I mean, they were trying to literally monopolize cinema when it began, as far as Edison, you know. So it's like, obviously, it's never been a people's art in a lot of ways, in the sense of, like, being able to just do it.
Not in Hollywood.
Right, yeah. And... yeah, so it's whatever. I mean, it was a good movie, but it's like, yeah, it's a shame that a movie that has to be is going to be forgettable, but then had to be something. It's like, yeah, I mean,
I agree.
Whatever.
Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. Now, people who listen to this pod know we've done all kinds of ape casts.
Wait, did we do that?
Yeah, way back when.
I don't remember.
And we'll be doing it again. This definitely, I don't know how much we want to even talk about this now, because we're going to dive into this movie in depth later
quick.
on.
Yeah.
When we do our own commentary when the Ape Cast returns. Just talk about it
probably
a little bit.
Probably in the fall, I'm guessing, is about the time.
Yeah, we might
that will
wait
be.
around. Just
it would have to be when it is.
Video.
Yeah.
2024. You know that already. Science fiction action. Wes Ball, who's only really done the Maze Runner movies, I believe.
The Scorch.
Yeah, the Scorch. Tell me about that tweet you saw that I think is so funny. Somebody was like,
oh yeah, somebody's like, I don't even care about it being a new Planet of the Apes movie. I'm waiting for the new Wes Ball movie. And it was like, what? Like, talking about Stanley Kubrick here or something. Like, yeah.
It takes place 300 years after the events of war. I don't know if I knew it was that far away. And follows a young chimpanzee named Noah, who embarks on a journey alongside a human warrior named Maui, M-A-E, I'm not sure, I don't remember how you said it, to determine the future for apes and humans.
Just May?
Maybe
yeah,
just May.
Yeah.
Apes and humans alike. This movie did actually do a little better financially. It had a $160 million budget, which this movie feels like it's a big budget because obviously all the CGI that goes into it and the set pieces. Made just under $300 million, which again, you know, hypothetically would be even better, but nonetheless, in the dynamics of today's Hollywood, that's pretty good. I'm in a weird place with this movie. I don't think it's nearly as good as the last two, but also it actually answered some of my problems that I had with the last two in terms of kind of saying, no, guess what? Apes are not inherently brilliant beings that are superior to humanity. Indeed, they were going to give way in their own way to repeating the same mistakes of humanity. Because I feel like out of all three of out of the new four, if this is the fourth one, this is the one that has the least amount of humans in it. I mean, it's like largely, I feel like, you know, driven by ape characters. That it, like, again, is like, no, we're not going to act like this is all kumbaya with the apes now, that there is still going to be conflict, and also that humanity has taken a severe back step but is not quite dead yet and is basically subsisting and barely getting by in a way that kind of is setting up the future of the franchise at the very end of the movie.
Right.
Again, as a huge Apes fan, how did you respond to this movie?
I thought it was really good. I mean, I was surprised because I didn't have a whole lot of high hopes for this. I mean, we have been kind of drugged by the Matt Reeves movies and Matt Reeves is great. So let me say that because I trust him to do anything, right? But at the same time, I mean, and I hate to say this too because it goes against kind of everything I believe when I say this, but like, we have to remember that not everything has to be this, like, major, like, this is the heady version, or this is the art house version of the Planet.
That's another thing, too. I liked it as a little lighter / goofier a little bit. I mean, not totally in the way that the original movies were, necessarily, but definitely not as heady as the Reeves movies were.
Yes. And so, that's just to
I'm
say
all
that,
for
right,
that.
I think we need to just kind of lower the stakes, and go back to just making Planet of the Apes movies again, right? Because these last few were so much about the apes getting started, about the humans being still very, like, cognizant and militaristic, whereas in this case it feels a lot more like a Planet of the Apes movie of the 70s, right? As far as the way it looks, the way it sounds, and just being a lot more light, like you said, and just being a Planet of the Apes movie, like. And it felt weird to say that because it feels like the modern Planet of the Apes movies have been so caught up in being something else.
Yeah.
which was great.
So we're going to take this seriously
better,
now.
right? And it's better ultimately in the long run. But for the franchise, I'm glad it finally just went back to being a Planet of the Apes movie rather than, oh, this is a Planet of the Apes movie, but it's kind of a war movie. It's kind of a crime drama, or it's kind of it's not a crime drama, but like, it's kind of a movie about rebellion and about and it's like, okay, like. But Planet of the Apes movies are going to be about that anyway, right? So it's So that's not to say I don't even still prefer the Matt Reeves films, but I was impressed by this in ways I wasn't.
Yeah, I think just on a lot of levels, those movies are superior, of course. But I think this is also weirdly a step in the right direction by not taking it as seriously and having a little bit more fun with it, which is why I think I responded so healthily to it. I'll also say, Raka, as it says here on Wikipedia, is a wise and virtuous Bornean orangutan who becomes an ally of Noah. That was actually my favorite ape character so far in all these movies. Because I always actually really like the orangutan characters in these newer ones. There's Maurice, wasn't it his name, in the newer ones also. But I love that he was like this person who was like this almost keeper of the keys of a certain mythology, and that he kind of pointed out how Caesar's name has been kind of bastardized and changed, and like how people forget who he really was. And it's also weird to like take in these movies where we quote know who the quote real Caesar was, quote. I'm just going to add quotes on here because it's all made up, but we know who that real Caesar was. And then we're years later where like these certain misconceptions and misremembering or misinterpretations of him have happened, and then we have a character who's kind of trying to correct that in some ways. Anyways, I really liked that performance.
It was good.
And so again, it's not as good as the last two, but it is still.
Yeah, and we'll get back to the movie when it's
we'll go
when we do it
about it again. Furiosa, a Mad Max Saga, titled on the screen simply as Furiosa, the latest in the Mad Max series. I kind of had an epiphany, and I'm sure I'm not the first person to say this about these movies. I feel like this franchise, and I think this is actually really interesting, even though this might sound rote, almost remakes itself with every movie.
Yeah.
It's like, we're going to do that movie, but we're going to do it again, and we're going to do this about it. And I think that's actually a really interesting way to approach this world, because there is obviously a mythology and a lore and all that. I think that stuff is cool.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to get lost and caught up in that.
Right.
But what I like about George Miller, yet again, he's not made a movie, I guess, since, was it 3,000 Years of Longing?
Yeah.
Was that the name of
2,000 years or 3,000, whatever it is.
I'm going to get the name exactly right, because we talked about
3,000 Years of Longing.
3,000 Years of Longing, which I liked. I think
weird
was
movie, though,
weirdly kind of underrated, but I'm not going to say it's some great masterpiece or nothing. It was fine, but it also got ignored in a way that these Mad Max fanboys just make me mad. Is this all you really care about? Is this whole thing?
Yeah.
But anyways, I mean, don't get me wrong. These movies are wickedly entertaining. So
wicked good fun. Yeah.
And there is a question of, did we need to see a quote Furiosa origin story? I do think this is, just by virtue of being good, one of the better prequel things ever made. I'll say that.
Yeah.
Just to briefly go through what this is about. As the world fail, Furiosa is snatched from the green place of many mothers and falls into the hands of a great biker horde led by the warlord Dementus. Anya Taylor-Joy, by the way, plays Furiosa, and Chris Hemsworth plays Dementus. Sweeping through the wasteland, they come across the Citadel presided over by the Immortum Joe, who's, of course, the villain in the Fury Road, while the two tyrants war for dominance, which I think was one of the more interesting elements of this whole movie narratively. Furiosa must survive many trails as she puts together the means to find her way home. This movie's been pretty critically well regarded, I feel like. Some have even went as far as to say it's better than Fury Road. I would not say that.
No, not quite.
But it's still quite good, I would say. Again, as I said earlier, George Miller's back for this. Yet again, a big story about this is the box office. It had a budget of $168 million. This is one of those rare movies where I feel like it has almost you watch them and you're like, this feels like it has an unlimited budget. It just feels like it's everything. I feel like I see the money on the screen when I see these movies. Grossed $58.9 million this opening weekend. The story also to talk about is Fury Road was actually not that big of a hit. It actually was okay. I'm actually even surprised they greenlit this. A lot of things to talk about with this movie. Where do you even want to start with it?
I want to talk about the narrative structure because something that you realize actually with the Mad Max movies while you watch this is how actually pretty basic the narratives of all these are. It's you set up here's this new villain, and now you got to have a car chase, and it's like, and that's pretty much it, and that's fine. But especially with
it does
Fury
do a way
Road,
of establishing these little factions,
yeah.
But they're all versions of the same thing. They all want these resources or these things.
And with Fury Road, you had seen that in a difference, I think. And I actually was talking about this with somebody at our church today that was randomly in my Sunday school that went and we saw this movie randomly in the same theater with. That movie has such a rhythm to it. It's just like constant bang, 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 this thing, that thing. Like, you rarely have this happen, but I remember the moment in Fury Road where I took a breath, which is when in the middle of that sandstorm and there's that shot of the flare going out, and it's like that's the moment where it's like, okay, we have to breathe for a second because it's literally been from pretty much the beginning constant action, and after that it's constant action pretty much, But that movie felt like, in a way, like you said, coming back to the franchise to really make the movie he's always wanted to make, or really make what Mad Max really is to him.
Fury Road
Fury Road, right?
Yeah.
This is an addendum to that, which is saying, okay, well, wait, what's next? And to say that this movie actually is about, or not necessarily, I'm not going to say it's not about something, or that it's about something where those other movies are not about things, because they are, but to make a movie that is like trying to really be bigger, it's like over years, it's not over just a few days or over a week, it's like this is a big story, it has chapters through it.
It's not again, it jumps narrative time, and Fury Road was pretty much continuous.
And that it feels, I mean, the other movies feel this way too, but to truly use the word, as Chris Hemsworth used it, epic. It feels like an epic in ways that some of these other stories have not.
It's in the trailer and probably some of the TV ads. Where it's like, do you have it in you to make it epic? And seeing the actual context of what that means makes it even funnier.
Yeah.
Because it's actually very late in the movie.
Right. And the movie is so weird. It's such a weird movie to me because it gets by on all this like prequelisms that happen of, this is how
she lost her arm.
This is how she lost her arm. Or this is how the Doctor ended up at the Citadel. It's like, why do I care about that? But like, and it does that stuff very conspicuously.
Yeah.
But also just not really caring or giving a crap about that because the movie's so good. It's like, but it's one of the few movies that does that stuff of like, here's the hat, the funny walk, like the Chaplin like stuff. About, here's the cane, the funny walk, the shoes. It's like does all that stuff actually. Well, obviously, and not as a like obvious way even as that, but I don't really care that much about the fact that it does that though, right? I mean, like the Doof Warrior shows back up. It's like all this very obvious things that people are like, ooh, I want to see that, or I want to, but also is like, have a word burger from our history man, like, and comes up with new things along the way. I mean, like, but the biggest thing about this movie, ultimately, because I really do like Anya Taylor-Joy's Furiosa in this. I think she's good.
I think she, not only, I think she's drop dead gorgeous and beautiful. She knows how to play to the camera in a way that few movie stars of today do. She feels like she's almost from like a silent film era as far as how she knows how to play the camera. And I know this is going to sound terrible and maybe even callous, but I far prefer her to Charlize Theron. Just because Charlize Theron's good, but I've never been the biggest Charlize Theron fan anyway, but this role feels has more meat to it, I think, too, than that does, also, to say, but... Yeah, I do feel like the characters in, especially Fury Road, which is a superior movie, are working on a more 1 to 2 dimensional level compared to even this.
Yeah, so this...
Because, in that way, Chris Hemsworth is a really
that's what I was going to say is
villain
the next
also,
part is that... Before I get to that, though, too, is that Tom Burke's Praetorian Jack, I think, is really pretty good.
And I thought that was really interesting that, like, he was like, people have been talking about this, like a proto Max
or a Mel Gibson.
It
It looks more like the Mel Gibson Max,
but just
literally
like
is,
that. It kind of fills in a gap of like why she would maybe eventually trust Max in Fury Road is that she once knew a guy like that, and that every generation of insane people in this world has that type of archetypal Man in Black figure, or that I think that is.
There's even a Max cameo, which is kind of like, okay, why?
I happened to go and use the bathroom during that part. I had to go really bad, so I missed that. But
well, it was already happening on the screen while you were walking away.
I literally was not. I was literally having to get by.
I literally
people,
was looking over at you, like, "Are you seeing this?" And
I literally was like busy getting by people. So
but anyway, but yeah, Chris Hemsworth is. And I think this is easy to say. Do what?
Did the guy look?
No, it was far away. I'll explain. It's basically like trying to explain. I'll try to set the shot for you visually. So like, there's this like cliff, and his interceptor car is sitting there, and he's like leaning against it, eating dog food, literally like he does in the original movies. And he looks more like the Mel Gibson version. But then he like looks over and sees Furiosa like walking down on the ground way below that. And it's just very like, okay, you literally didn't miss anything, basically, but it was kind of just like, oh, well, they're, okay. Max Rocksteady Games, whatever his name is. I mean, his name's literally nonsense. Like, I don't even know what that means. It's weird when, like, Toe Jam makes more sense than somebody's actual name, right? Chris Hemsworth in this movie is, and it's easy to say this because none of the Mad Max villains have ever been that complex, but it's far and away the most, complex and most interesting and funniest and evilest and just in so many, very holistic villain.
There's been people saying, and I agree with this, that Hemsworth seems like he's been moving up the Chris rankings for a little while
good
now.
Did he have it in him to make it epic? I also like that you get to watch that character age, because I mean, like, you see that obviously with Furiosa, and that's kind of the main thing in the movie. But to watch him age is a very interesting take on the villain too, which we see and stuff. But you see him as this, nomadic figure in the beginning who's, like, very fit and always, like, on it and totally violent and savage individual. And then he just becomes this very fat, kind of lazy king by the end of the movie. And there's that great moment where he reappears when he drives up on a car next to the truck and she's sitting there and he kind of is talking into the microphone, and then he sits down and he just is, like, real overweight and, like, gray hair, and he kind of looks over at her and doesn't even recognize her at all, and she's gonna kill him, but then Praetorian Jack's talking to him about something and she has to stop. But just like moments like that make the movie feel more, I mean, I won't say those movies don't feel alive, because you watch a movie like Fury Road and you feel like every single thing is a crawling, wreaking havoc of a living mess, the narrative feels alive in ways that others do not. And in that way, it's the most ambitious film he's ever made, I think, very clearly, as far as like actually making this a story.
As opposed to a feeling.
And yes. And Anya Taylor-Joy and Tom Burke talked about this in the Cannes press conference, but they talked about the relationship between Praetorian Jack and Furiosa being like not only a romantic love, but also this, like, what she said was seeing it as this love of ideas, like they get each other, or they like see each other as people, or agreeing with things of like on a soul level, which like is interesting, because I was thinking about that when I went into the movie, of having her said that, and I see that, but it's in a lot more of like the way they look at each other, or the way they do this thing or that. It's not like they're speaking to each other in that way, which is very much a George Miller, like you said, that silent movie kind of idea of like they're going to tell that story in a different way in the middle of this really big action movie that has people flying around on octopus floats, like, and you're doing all that in the middle of that is just so impressive. And that's not even your best movie. Right. It's like, and that a movie like that can just come out and be that good.
It's like I said, I feel like this franchise, and I've still never seen Beyond Thunderdome, and I'll correct that eventually. But I feel like what I like about this series in a weird way is how it kind of takes the world, but it's like we're going to do this kind of thing now with it.
Yeah, right.
I wish the Star Wars movies in some ways approached it in a similar way.
Right.
I thought the prequels were in a version of that while it was still threading the narrative. It was like, but things are going to look like this now.
Yes.
And,
and I feel like all of those movies have done that, except for The Road Warrior was a little bit too much like, I suppose. And what's weird is that movie's already etched in granite and crystallized and fossilized in amber of being the Mad Max movie in the culture, right?
Yeah, that was the one before Fury Road.
Right.
People are like, if you're going to watch one of these, do that
and
one.
so that is clearly already like its own thing.
Yeah.
But to see Fury Road, that broke the mold and made that itself in its own way. But so like Road Warrior being taken out of this, the first Mad Max movie feels like it's a movie I don't really like.
I've only seen it once. It's been many years ago.
I didn't like it, but I'd like to rewatch it. Feels like that's actually the most interesting movie, I think, theoretically, in the sense of there's still vestiges of this like society that exists. Part of that is just by nature of the movie being such a small budget that they're still having to do that, right? And say, well, kind of things are still sort of okay, but they're not okay, and it's like very, wishy-washy, complicated. It still kind of looks like real life, but everything's bursting at the seams, and it's all going to fall apart and collapse in like 2 seconds. You can feel like that. And then juxtaposing that with the loss of his family is actually a very clever idea. The movie doesn't work, I think, as much as it could. Unless I rewatch it and I'm thinking about that, and I'm kind of like, actually, this maybe does, but I don't know. Road Warrior is a lot like Fury Road, so we'll kind of leave that out. But then Beyond Thunderdome, I've described that movie, it's like Hook meets Star Wars. Hook meets Return of the Jedi or something. It's like, has a lot of kids in it. It's more about these like societies that have come up in the Mad Max world. And
as someone who's not seen it, it does feel like that's a good place to take the franchise after the Road Warrior, because at that point you wouldn't just want to see that again.
And then you have Tina Turner running like the Thunderdome, which is this like fighting ring that he gets in, and parts of that show up in the video game, and like,
which again, hypothetically hearing about it, seemed like that's a place to go with it.
And there's a car chase at the end of the movie, but most of it's very like other. It's not really about those things, But then you have Fury Road, which is basically a remix and a revamp of a lot of things about the Road Warrior. But then you have, and that being the definitive Mad Max movie now, I feel like in a lot of ways, is what he's always wanted it really to be.
I feel like that, not to downgrade the older movies, because I've never wanted somebody who wants to do that.
Yeah.
But this feels like that rare thing where it's like, no, but the new thing was like, all the best parts of those
about
old
Twin Peaks,
ones,
but,
and transforming it in a way that this is the ultimate version of itself.
Yeah.
In a way that I'm not saying you shouldn't go back and watch the old ones, but Fury Road is such a... And I won't say I'm a Fury Road doubter exactly, because I do think it is pretty much as great as everybody says. I do think people get in a mode of talking about how great it is that it almost tempts being overrated. But honestly, if I sat down and watched it again, I'd be like, oh my god, that is
it is. No, I get what you mean.
Because there are other great action movies.
Well, you hear the same thing over and over, it gets stale, right? Yeah. But no, that movie is very clearly great, and that speaks to that movie's greatness, that even this movie couldn't quite touch it. This movie was that ambitious and this great and so well made, and that even still it couldn't quite get
Going
there.
back to what I was saying earlier about the CGI, I think why it works sometimes in these movies, it doesn't look realistic, is because it's literally a hellscape fantasy of...
There's
it doesn't even matter.
A guy
it's like
named the Octoboss who's flying around on an octopus flyer gyrocopter,
and so it just naturally gets a leeway to be... Oh, it doesn't have to look photorealistic because they're already dealing in fantasy world anyway.
But also, another thing I liked about this, as much as I love Fury Road, it didn't look exactly the same either. I mean, it felt like it wasn't as rich in color. It felt more clean looking. It wasn't as vibrant, which is something a lot of people probably don't like about it. But I actually liked it. Gave it this otherworldly quality to what was going on. It felt very I said, not whitewashed in a bad way, but it just felt more authentic.
Yeah.
In a way, which also made it look more unrealistic almost.
Right.
It was this weird like illusion or something. Is weird, but yeah. And
do you want to see more Mad Max movies? What could be done with more Mad Max movies? Like, what do you see the prospects of a future with this?
Well, I'll say with this, I mean, at the prospect of hearing a new Furiosa prequel, I'm like, oh hell, like, why? Who cares, right? You know, and then you make a movie, and then this movie's made,
right?
And it's like, well, whatever then, I guess. You know, I mean, and I know how hard these movies are to get made, not only in the production, the pre and post production. I mean, making these movies, it takes a lot out of a person, I'm sure. And I don't know how he is so, George Miller, first of all, has this much energy to be nearly 80 years old, but also is so positive all the time. I mean, you ever see him, he's literally never without a smile on his face. And you heard him talk about this movie at Cannes. He said, at the beginning, he said, I mean, literally he said, my childhood was literally going outside and playing knights with, like, medieval knights with trash can lids. He said, I mean, that's literally what I did as a kid. And then he said, and then I'd go to, like, a 2-screen movie house that would show, action movies and westerns and whatever, like the typical, like, 40s.
These movies
50s,
definitely got
like,
a lot of Western DNA in them.
Yeah.
But
you see that in the sense of that guy was somebody who wanted to realize this vision his whole life, in the sense of growing up in rural Australia, what that has to look like, feeling like everything's bare. And this is his own life, so I'm not. He could all just literally say, no, none of this is true, and I'd be like, okay. But of seeing what that world looks like, everything barely being held together by spit and paper, and it's like, and the constant adventure of living in that world, and like, and then mixing that with these westerns and samurai films and action movies and just whatever movies he was seeing there, and monster movies, and you make something like this, and that, like I said, you see a movie like Mad Max, the original, and you feel him wanting to make the movies he's making now, right?
Yeah.
But finally, it takes a whole career of making movies and to be able to actually produce films that have budgets and are.
I feel like we rag on digital technology a lot, but this movie's only possible through the digital realm in a lot of ways.
And kind of wrapping it up here, just some quick thoughts. Other than just, wow, thank God these movies can be made, and thank God for George Miller that he can even make them. But this was the biker Mad Max movie. Finally, we got the biker movie. There's been versions of that here and there, but like,
and in most of the movie, Hemsworth's riding around like a chariot. Like,
yeah, because I was talking to that person in our Sunday school. He described it as he was literally using the reins on the handle.
Yeah.
What do you call that? The throttle on it, and literally like pulling that to make it go, like, and saying like, how's that even work? You know, like, and also just one of my favorite sequences is like literally, and you get the Western influence from this, and even in certain ways, maybe even Streets of Fire. I don't know, just visually, but of when they're at the Bullet Farm. And I love talking about the stuff in these movies, the Bullet Farm, the history, Word Burger, like all this, like what, like
these movies do have a particular language and lore that is,
which I imagine comes out of Australian dialect, but also is just totally weird anyway.
Yeah.
You know,
well, yeah.
But
one of my favorite memes that have come out of this movie, and people said it before, is like, oh no, this isn't a post-apocalypse. This is just what Australia is.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
Australia's just like this,
right?
But I do like too that these are authentically. I mean, I'm not an Australian person, but they feel like they're made somewhere else.
Oh yeah, no, it's
from
different.
Another
it's like they speak English, but I'm not sure that they do.
But it also works in a post-apocalyptic.
Right. Yeah, but there's that scene where they're at the Bullet Farm, and there's that big. And by the way, the Bullet Farm looked kind of let down by the Bullet Farm. Didn't really. It was very just like kind of like a mine.
The sequence there was really
no.
Great.
That's what I was gonna say. Is that's probably my favorite sequence in the movie is the shootout basically that happens there, and it just gets to when all else fails, Praetorian Jack just gets out with a Winchester repeater and just starts shooting people.
I was thinking,
and it's this is literally like a western.
I was
like
gonna say something
like,
new about that, but forgot that it was like a repeater rifle.
Yeah, and he literally just gets out and just shooting people, and he's like whatever, and it's very.
I love
easy
to
to
remember
do,
at the very beginning, and this is throughout the whole movie, of how unceremonious and quick and brutal a lot of these deaths in these movies are.
There's that scene where they
musing
it
over
was after
it's just
Furiosa
purely
had been kidnapped, and with the Dementis horde was basically inducting people into his group, his clan. And literally what they would do is see who could basically do the drawn and quartered with motorcycles instead of horses. And literally having a guy pulled apart with motorcycles instead of horses and seeing who could. Yeah, and he went up and then got ripped apart. And how so much. And then even there's parts where his dogs will feast on people. And it's actually way more violent and the action is different. That's what I liked about the movies. It felt like a revenge movie or a western or like a action movie in the sense of gunplay and violence, that the other movies are all about the cars. And so I liked that about it, that it felt more like that was a difference.
But don't worry, there's plenty of car action.
Oh yeah, no, there is. I mean, and that poor little boy that is trying to activate the daggum whirligig on the back of the rig, and he doesn't make it,
R.I.P.
But
R.I.P. Short
real
King.
heroes. I mean, it literally needs to be seen to be believed. It's just one of those movies. It's you can talk about it all day, but it's wow, we really did that. Especially also his fate. We haven't talked about that, but Dementis' fate, because it says we don't really know what happened to him exactly, and it's but this is actually what it was. And it's wait, what?
He's being basically barely kept alive in a tree is literally
It's is this an
out of
Ari Aster movie now?
Yeah.
I mean, but wow.
Yeah. So we highly recommend that.
And also, I love in these movies how actors will play the same different roles, how they literally had that. I always forget his name, but the guy that was in the last one was Scrotus, Scabrous Scrotus in this. Literally, I'm not even making that up if you've never heard that. Josh Hillman, who was in Fury Road, and he was in the X-Men movies and Jack Reacher. But that he was in this also as Scabrous Scrotus. So he was actually in that Animal Kingdom movie that you saw years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Also, but
also, just reading here, it says in April 2017, so this is obviously 7 years ago, April Miller said that he and co-writer Nico Notorious have finished 2 additional post-Fury Road scripts, and I would imagine Furiosa is one of those. The Fury Road lead, Tom Hardy's committed to the next sequel in 2015, and then again in early 2017. Miller said the 5th film in the franchise will be titled Mad Max The Wasteland.
Yeah, I've seen that here. So.
Apparently there's a plan of that. I don't know if that's going to happen now.
Yeah, well, as much as I did love this, of not having Max in it, and that was great. Just have something different.
That honestly didn't bother me in the slightest.
No, I like that. Yeah. But I would be I would like to see Tom Hardy again as Max, though, too, just because it was Mel Gibson for forever, and now it's it's somebody else. So, I mean, I think there's a couple more left at least. I think he can make 1 or 2, but we'll see how it goes.
So that's Furiosa. Go and check it out whenever you have the chance, because who knows how long it's going to be in theaters. Again, it's a bigger Warner Brothers release, but nonetheless, it's struggling financially.
Yeah.
So just keep that in mind. Now we're going to run through some of the biggest summer movies that are getting ready to come out. There's a lot of stuff here, and I don't know. I feel like Levi did a good job of listing some things here, and because I was like, let's give a yay or nay on all these, but I feel like most of these are going to be yay on.
There's a couple no,
that are going to be maybe more in the middle, but we're going to kind of just go through chronological order here, and we're very likely, if we do see these movies, obviously going to come and talk about them.
Yeah, right.
After we,
I don't know what else we'd be doing on here.
Inside Out 2, June 14th. This is one that I kind of added to the list.
So let's move on. No, just go ahead.
And the only reason I wanted to put this on here is the first Inside Out, I think, was brilliant. I loved it when it came out. I've not revisited it that many times. That was one of the movies that I'm like, oh, okay, Pixar still has some life at that particular moment.
By the way,
yes,
just to be clear,
by this point, So, but that was one I was like, and Pete Docter especially is one of the Pixar auteurs of sorts that I have been more a fan of. I don't think he's actually much a part of this one, which let's keep that in mind. But I thought it was such a brilliant idea. I've still not seen Soul. I know people have said that kind of is a ripoff of things about Inside Out. I'm looking here like the directed screenplay by a producer. I'm not seeing Pete Docter's name in it. They're adding more emotions, which is obviously, I guess, a natural thing to do. You like the first Inside Out. Mm-hmm. What are your prospects of caring about an Inside Out 2?
None whatsoever.
None whatsoever?
No, I'm kidding, not that much. I just don't really care. I mean, it's not even anything against it. It's just that, I don't know. I felt like that first one was pretty good.
Well, that felt
so
great, too. Yeah. And it's like, and this is, you could say this about any Pixar sequel. It's like, you're going to go back to the whale. And
yeah, well, and I mean, in the
Toy
sense,
Story was good for at least 2 sequels, but then...
Yeah, and well, speaking of Toy Story, I mean, that's the natural progression, right? You have a kid in these movies, and you watch them grow up, right? Yeah. And that's what they're trying to do with this. And it's like, we already did that. I don't need that again, you know. Now, thankfully, this actually would make more sense in saying, yeah, really, we should watch this person grow up because their emotions are going to change, or they're going to become more complex. But how's a Pixar movie going to do that for me, right? Yeah. It's like, okay, so when she's like 30, what are we gonna worry over that abortion she had? Like, you know, I'm not trying to be morbid, but it's like, are we gonna get that complex? Is she gonna feel guilt over that? Is she gonna be, you know, like, and they're trying to do that already with having anxiety be a new emotion.
I feel like that's what they're gonna sell the movie on.
Yeah, and it's like,
that's the big buzzword of today. Anyways.
Yeah, and it's kind of like, and with that, I'm kind of like, and let me say, somebody who and I'm not just actually saying this, I'm somebody who has anxiety, but I'm not somebody who has to talk about it every 2 seconds, right?
It's not one of your personality traits.
Right, but like, I'm not interested in seeing a movie about that. Not even because it's about, I'm just like, I don't care, I hear about that all the time. I live through that all the time, why do I care? Why do I want to see that? Like, I don't care, you know. So it's like, that's something
I am mildly more interested, but do also agree, like, but do we really need to do this, though? Like, yeah. But I'm actually thinking more about seeing it than not, but
yeah, we'll see.
It's against some of my better judgments, and there's not many things I would even go out and do this for with Disney or Pixar at this point, but that is the one thing I'm like, maybe. Yeah, we'll see what the buzz is.
Right.
Going out.
It won't be Inside Out, Insidious 3. Like,
moving on to a movie, can
we remark upon that though for just a second? You remember that when Inside Out came out? And they accidentally showed like an Insidious sequel, and it literally, supposedly the beginning of that movie is also very violent and bracing, and the kids were like, "Oh my god, what is it?" Just like,
one of the worst things that could happen.
That's such a summer of 2015 story. It's literally like what life was back then. It was amazing to be alive.
Well, it's wild to even think about. Yeah, summer of 2015. That was when Mad Men was ending.
Yep.
Fury Road came out.
Yeah.
I was graduating college, Wilmington at the time. All the throwbacks to that.
Yeah, Jurassic World. Anyway, the Bike Riders.
I don't think of a movie we could be more in on.
Yeah.
I mean, is there anything? I mean, no. Literally, let's go through the cast real quick.
Literally just read what it...
I know we've talked about this movie in the past with it being pushed back.
Right. Just literally read the beginning up. Just don't even go there yet. Just read what it is.
Bike Riders is a 2023. Again, it came out at some festivals last year. American drama film written and directed by Jeff Nichols. Sign me up.
All right, well, yes. Yeah, but then continue.
Well, even then.
Right, yes.
Tells a fictional story inspired by the 1967 photo book of the same name by Danny Leone, depicting the lives of the Outlaws MC, a Chicago-based motorcycle club. Film stars Jodie Comer, Austin Butler, Tom Hardy, Michael Shannon, Mike Feist, and Norman Reedus.
Like,
let's do it.
Inject in vain now. Like, you know, I mean, it's to the point where I'm probably going to overhype it. You know what I mean?
Well, that's why I'm trying to like, because I know that we're probably going to love it, but I'm like, I'm going to take this down a notch, and I'm not even going to think about it all that much. I'm going to let it kind of spring up on me.
Yeah.
Like, that's coming out this weekend. Let's go see it. I'm not trying, because
I've even thought about buying the photo book. I'll probably do that after the fact.
I would like to do that too,
but just like, you know, just to be like, oh, okay, like, but I haven't even done that because, yeah.
Well, there's a lot of things to break down. Jeff Nichols' first movie in a while. That alone
first movie really since Loving? Has it been that long?
Yes, yeah, Loving. He spent so many years in developmental hell with that
Alien Nation, and then he was gonna make that
one. He wrote the screenplay, I think, for Quiet Place Day One.
Yeah, I'd
or
forgot
he was
that.
well, he's not even really credited here. He did some time developing, and then he kind of moved on from that or whatever.
But then he was going to make that one CIA Cuban movie with Adam Driver or something.
I think that might still be in development.
Well, Adam Driver's very busy. I'm sure it was all this Megalopolis stuff. I'm sure Francis Ford Coppola's like, no, I'm not going to let you go and make this Jeff Nichols movie a la Mad Men and Matthew
a lot of symmetry
Weiner.
in this episode.
Yeah, but I mean, it's called Hell Yeah. I mean, you know, we already have...
Norman Reedus, by the way, is playing a character named Funny Sonny.
Well, we already... And without saying a whole lot, we already have ideas in our mind for biker movies we'd like to make.
Yeah.
So...
Roger Corman.
Yeah, I mean,
this episode just keeps rhyming.
Right.
I mean, yeah, so we're all in on this. This whole year, it feels like a young movie stars prove it to me year because Austin Butler is obviously one of our big movie stars. I recently
like a vampire sucking the blood out of me, like, you know.
I recently rewatched Elvis for the first time since seeing it in the theater, and I still think that movie's a lot of fun.
Oh, yeah, it's
and
good.
He's great in it. I think
fascinating movie.
I'm the devil. I'm through the devil's business. So we're gonna have like an emergency bike riders pod. Don't worry.
And we're either going to be on the ledge or already jumping off it in joy, forgetting we can't fly. Like that's what it's going to be. So yeah,
we're going to have a lot of bike riders covers. Don't worry. Kinds of kindness.
Wait, what is it's Vandals MC. Oh yeah, you know I'm getting a jacket with that on it. Like might even go to the movie dressed up like that. Who knows?
Kinds of Kindness.
The new Yorgos Lanthimos film.
Yes, which we talked about.
Premiering on the same day, although it probably won't show here quite as quickly.
It might play in Nashville. We might
we might have to do that with the bike riders too. I don't know.
I don't even really know what this movie's about, to be honest. I've not even really looked into it.
It's like an anthology movie.
Yeah,
I think.
It says an absurdist dark comedy anthology film. I have heard some people say that this is some of his most radical movies since like Dogtooth era,
right. Or even The Lobster, maybe in certain ways.
I think he's subtly building one of the best filmographies in recent memory.
Yeah,
Lanthimos is. So,
literally anything that man does, I'm gonna be there for. So it doesn't.
Well, it even
matter.
looks like it has the same actors, and they're playing different.
Oh, really?
Characters.
Oh, yeah, I see that now. Yeah,
like segment. So,
the death of RMF. RMF is flying. RMF eats a sandwich.
Those are the three different. Yeah.
Literally, what does that mean? Like. That's hilarious.
So, I kind of don't want to know too much about this, but the cast...
Well, also, like, what I love about the trailer, it's like this purple Challenger car is driving around real fast.
Now I'm thinking, you just kind of said it, I guess, but they do keep showing that trailer in the AMC, so 165 minutes, let's do it.
Oh, yeah, it's nuts. I heard people talking about it at Cannes, saying that it literally doesn't care if it's liked. I think somebody said it was one thing. But yeah, it's already a Cannes winner for Jesse Plemons in. And I know Jesse Plemons. I wouldn't call him necessarily overrated exactly, but a lot of people love him. But I mean, dang, like he is setting up a really great filmography.
Yeah.
You know, as the movies.
I mean, you mentioned it earlier. He's terrific in Civil War, and
there's only one scene. Yeah.
Horizon, an American Saga.
This is premiering, it says June 28th and August 16th, because there's the two-part nature of it.
Yeah. We've talked about this in the past when this was first announced, I remember. You know, I think some people that are like maybe more into more recent modern Westerns are probably going to be slightly off-put by this movie, I would think. Because Kevin Costner is, what I've heard... and what I know of what the things I've seen from him is kind of, he likes a more romantic Western of sorts that's a little more old-fashioned.
Or at least of the, like, 90s brief... Well, I was going to say the 90s brief renaissance of romantic Westerns, and then I thought, well, wait, he did that. You know, with Dances with Wolves and White Earp and so on.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
But, I mean, it does have slightly more modern sensibilities in terms of, you know, maybe a slightly simplistic but more... revisionist view of how Native Americans were depicted in movies, but it still is an overall romantic view, not necessarily. And I mean that,
but with a modern take on the sex and violence of the West that that the John Ford films would not have been able to have done, or
Right.
or Nicholas Ray for that matter, or whoever, or Delbert Mann or whoever.
So I don't even care how good these movies are. I'm just all in on what the idea of the
Although
release
Delbert Mann's
strategy-
movies seem to have been a little more revisionist in their own way, but anyway.
the release strategy of these movies are that I'm just going to
Yeah.
go see them. I don't care. I don't even care how good they are.
Oh, yeah, I could
honestly.
give a crap.
But
Yeah.
also just the idea of we'll just do a big epic western.
We haven't done that in a while.
today.
Yeah.
I think is exciting.
And what's a shame, actually what's a good thing, but is that all this is coming off of the coattails of Yellowstone, in a lot of ways, and him getting kind of a career resurgence from Yellowstone, and he came to Cannes kind of similarly like Coppola did, like, I've put it all on the line, and it's like he literally always talking about is having to sell a couple houses, basically, which is like, I don't really think that's putting it all on the line, but thanks, But, I mean, he was saying very seriously, he's like, yeah, I mean, I'd like to leave those to my kids, but, and he just kind of shrugged and was like, I wanted to make this movie, so if it don't work out, they're going to have to make their own way, is literally what he said at the Cannes press conference. I was like, wow, he really is himself. I'll give him that, And supposedly there were the rumors that his marriage may have sort of fallen apart due to this movie and the effort that he was making to make it, and I don't know.
So the chapters 1 and 2, again, chapter 1's getting released in June, chapter 2 in August. I just love, too, that it's like, we talked about the possibility of that version of that happening with the Beatles movie.
Yeah.
In terms of how they're going to release those.
And can I just say, based on that $100 million for both movies, and there's a couple movies we've just talked about that were like way above that, and they don't even look near as good looking as this. Because, I mean, we've seen the trailer for this, on the big screen now a couple times. Like, holy crap. Like, I mean, it looks like $1 million.
I don't want to push all the chips
you
on
know.
the table. I got a feeling this could actually make some money.
Oh,
and
no,
be
these will make
successful,
money.
because
Oh,
I think this
definitely,
is something
yeah.
that's going to appeal to a lot of
That's
people
what I was going to
who
say.
don't normally
is
go out to movies.
for middle
the
America.
Yellowstone crowd.
Yes, that's what I was going to say. For middle America, this is going to be a big hit. No, these movies are going to make a ton of money. I already know that. Not even any question. But the fact that even this is operating on a modest budget compared to these other movies, and is $100 million for 2-3-hour westerns that look like they're like really big, and it's like, yeah, there's no way that's not going to make money. So, yeah.
Another movie, this is a lot smaller.
We saw a trailer
I
for
was
this a
actually
while
not
ago.
even aware of this all that much until Levi turned me on to it and showed me the trailer for it before we started recording 5 years ago. Mother Couch. While attempting to leave a furniture store, an elderly matriarch suddenly decides to sit on the couch and stay there. I love this idea for a movie. This sounds like something we would kind of joke about and come up with an idea for. Her 3 children come together, as well as the store owners, who all go through a mind-bending journey.
Yeah, because that's what I was going to say. Is
self-discovery.
like, when I heard about this, and I thought about it, and before we saw the trailer, I was thinking, okay, so this is probably like a J.C. Penney or something. And then you actually see what the place looks like, and you're like, this is a furniture store, like, and then there's all this like, and then it seems like there's this secret society within the furniture store. It's like, what?
Yeah, because
It's
Levi
like,
showed me this, and
yeah.
I thought it was going to be this just kind of a little more lighthearted,
Right, that's what I
straightforward
thought, too,
comedy.
yeah, but,
and then as the trailer goes on, you're like, wait, what is going on
Right,
here?
yeah, it's
You
like
know?
it's like that blink twice, don't blink twice, it's all right, Pussy Island, as they say. But yeah, that by the way, that's another movie. Well, that's coming out in the fall, I guess. That Blink Twice movie, or Blink if you're honk if you're horny or something. Blink Twice.
August.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Well, we'll come to that then. I forgot to mention that one on here, but anyway.
Ellen Burstyn's playing the mother.
Yeah.
And then Ewan McGregor. I never know how to say this guy's name.
Reese something.
Reese Ifans.
Reese Evans, I guess.
He played the
Ifans.
lizard in Amazing Spider-Man.
Oh,
Remember
yeah.
that.
I was wondering who that
Then
was.
Taylor Russell, who was in Waves.
Yeah.
F.
Murray Abraham
Well,
also.
F. Murray Abraham
sorry, yeah.
as Marcus/Marco.
Like he's not even sure about what his name is.
Well, maybe the people reporting on the movie don't even exactly know. You know what I mean? Know what I mean? Like maybe it was half remembered or something. I don't know. Or maybe that's a plot point in the movie. I don't really know. What's
It's probably a
going on with
plot
that.
point, I would think. That'd be funny if they're like, it's Marcus or Marco or something. I don't know.
But check out the trailer for this. It looks pretty wacky.
Well, you know what's funny? Also, you mentioned about Ellen Burstyn being in it. You know, it's like, this isn't at all against Ellen Burstyn, but I keep feeling like she's got her last role,
Oh, right.
and then she keeps making movies.
Interstellar felt like that was,
Right.
and that was 10 years ago.
And it's
now.
like, now she's in Mother Couch.
Yeah. Don't you love, though, like, people like that have been around forever have these legendary filmographies. Their last movies end up being called stuff
Mother
like that.
Couch.
Like
Yeah.
Mother Couch.
Like Mother Goose, Mother
and that
Couch,
has
whatever.
nothing to do with the quality of the movie,
Right.
but it's just these really random things towards the end.
And that's a movie, Mother Goose. She goes to sit on a goose and won't get up. Anyway.
Fly Me to the Moon, another one we got our sights on. I don't know if you knew this. It's directed by Greg Berlanti, who was like the creator of a lot of those DC CW shows. Like,
Oh, yeah, like The Flash and Green Arrow. And yeah, right.
That's
All right.
kind of his biggest.
Well, I guess
claim
everybody
to
has
fame.
to slum it somewhere.
During the 1960s space race between the United States and the Soviet Union, the relationship develops between a NASA director in charge of the Apollo 11 launch and the marketing specialist brought in to fix NASA's public image and stage a, quote, backup fake moon landing. This is trying to thread
this is
the
all about
needle.
the arms race, the space race, and the peace race. But yeah.
It's like trying to thread the needle between, the moon landing happened, but let's shoot a fake backup. I feel like the conspiracy theorists are going to randomly seize on this, and there's going to be a lot of kind of stupid people who go and watch this and go, that's what happened then.
When the movie's kind of, and I was seeing the trailer for the first time. I was really watching it, and I was like, at first
Stars,
I thought,
by the way, Scarlett Johansson, Channing Tatum.
At first I thought it was like supposed to be kind of a funny take on the actual moon landing, right? And then as it goes on, you start to realize, okay, this is like a comedy. And then when I saw the trailer again, I was like, okay, I'm a little more interested in this than I was, because the first time I was watching, I was like, we got another space movie. There's randomly too many of those, by the way.
Well, I feel like after First Man, we should have a moratorium on them
right.
for a while.
I was like, okay, all right, whatever. And then I was like, wait, this.
And I say that out of respect to that movie.
Yeah, definitely. You can't have a movie that has an ending like that and it not be great. But yeah, this movie, I'm like, yeah, why not? But if I could easily see myself missing this though at the same time.
I agree. It could be okay. I think that's. Speaking of the double feature with this, and I was actually just about to ask you, because you made this list, like, are there any horror movies on the horizon? Not thinking about this.
This is usually like that time of the year where you get a Black Phone or this or something. There's always some horror movie around this time. So.
Longlegs, which has been dropping a lot of really awesome trailers.
Yeah, and they're all pretty different too.
Marketing stuff.
Because I feel like I can never get a hold on what this movie is.
Which is definitely intentional,
right.
I feel like. The film focuses on Lee Harker, a new FBI agent who's been assigned to an unsolved case of serial killer. As the investigation becomes more complicated with occult evidence uncovered, Harker realizes a personal link to the killer and must act quickly to prevent another family murder. Again, Micah Monroe, who... that name is familiar. It Follows. She was the lead in that. Nicolas Cage, who has been not really that many stills of him out there. There's no even listing of who he is in the movie. You hear his voice in a lot of the trailers.
And clearly he's the serial killer in it. But
this is directed by Osgood Perkins, who directed a Hansel and Gretel movie.
Gretel
from a
and
few
Hansel,
years.
yeah.
Gretel and Hansel's the name of it. I'm the pretty thing that lives in the house.
Wow.
And then the Black Coat's Daughter.
I've heard of that. I remember when that came out. A lot of people kind of liked that. The Monkey.
His next movie is called The Monkey. Based on the Stephen King short story.
Yeah, from might be is it? No, that what's it from?
Skeleton Crew.
Yeah, that's it. Cause it's on the cover.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, anyways, this could be a lot of smoke and no fire. I'm just saying.
Yeah,
I actually am
right.
excited for it, but the trailers have been really gripping, and you're like, oh my god, what is this like? So
it's like nine circles of hell light reading,
So I mean, I am actually very interested in this, but you never know.
I even like the poster there. That's a pretty good poster.
Twister.
We got twins. Twins.
Twister.
I prefer the first trailer of this, by the way, to the second one.
What I love about this is it's just like, you know what this is. We're doing Twister again. Just it's just you can see that cynically, but I'm just deciding to say like, nah, you either want to see it or you don't. Make your decision.
Yeah.
Twister, by the way, has one of the all-time great teaser or not but posters. I feel like, and random fonts, which they had to bring back. They had to do it to him. I don't even know how much we want to say about this exactly right now. We're probably going to be doing Twister soon on the podcast. That's all I'm going to say. So we'll kind of probably preview that movie.
Yeah, so you have seen
more
Twister. I have not seen Twister.
Years ago.
Yeah.
You know, and we're going to talk about this as we do Twister in the future. That kind of... Because it was directed by Jan de Bont, who did, like, Speed and, you know, was a big DP. That has a special place in a lot of, like, elder millennials movie-going mindsets because... That was just like big summer movie, Bill Paxton, literally throw a Twister in there, let's do it. Just summer blockbuster disaster movies. That's kind of has this special place.
Well, yeah, you had that around that time. You'd had all those
written by Michael Crichton.
Right.
I don't know if you knew that.
I forgot that.
And so that part of his '90s huge celebrity with Jurassic Park and ER.
Well, and you'd have had during that time all those like Deep Impact and Dante's Peak, and you know all of those like the kind of the resurrection of the disaster movie.
So we're gonna talk about all that later. I don't want to get too much in that now.
With also Titanic and Independence Day being part of that.
Glenn Powell's going through a moment right now where he's also another one of those up and coming movie stars. He's got a big role in this, obviously. So, I mean, the trailers look fine. It looked good. I'm actually, that this is one of those movies that I feel like you don't have to have some big expectation about. It's like you know what you're getting into. You're just hoping it's going to be, pretty good. And I'm feeling mostly fine about it. Again, I think one of the virtues of it is that it doesn't have to have some big expectation game to play with it. So, what any other things you have to add to Twisters?
No, just we're
going to be talking about it more later.
Right.
Like I said, Trap, also coming out this year, revolves around a serial killer who attends a concert with his daughter, only to realize the police have targeted him at the venue. Latest M. Night Shyamalan. Josh Hartnett also going through his own little career resurgence after Oppenheimer. Got a great trailer. I do wonder if I would imagine there are more cards to play in the movie that they're not going to give them all away.
Yeah.
Because it kind of, some have said, "Oh, this trailer's great," but it's like spoiling what the movie's about. I feel like there are more cards.
Well, they wouldn't
to play.
do that if there wasn't something to it. Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Anything to add about
just
that?
A hilarious trailer. I mean,
already
in a good way.
Created various memes.
Right, but the guy that's so random. It's like, hi, and he's like, oh yeah, hey, I'm Brandon. Like, it's literally like, what? Like, what are you talking about? And then like, he's like, yeah, they're gonna get this guy, and it's like, I'm not supposed to be telling you this, and it's like, yeah, and then the ending where he's like freaking out, looking at him like crazy, But anyway. Yeah, that'd be interesting.
Alien Romulus, the latest in the Alien franchise, coming out August 16th, later in the summer. Directed by Fede Alvarez, which I think is the single most exciting thing about it.
Yeah.
Set between the events of Alien and Aliens, the story concerns a group of young space colonists who, while scavenging a derelict spaceship, come face to face with the most terrifying life form in their universe.
Yeah, so also it should be said it's co-written by Fede Alvarez and his writing partner Rodo Cieguez and they both wrote together the Evil Dead and the Don't Breathe films, randomly that guy directed Don't Breathe 2, which is randomly a random favorite movie of mine that I think is actually really good.
It is quite good, yeah.
So I'll be very interested to see how that turns out. Before you get to Reagan, we had to talk about Blink Twice real quick because I forgot to put that on there. So Blink Twice, once known as Pussy Island, we have to remember, is this Zoe Kravitz directorial debut, and she's actually not going to be in the movie, is that right? Or wait, no,
I don't think so.
Yeah, no, she's not in the movie.
She's directed it.
But that it's about a cocktail waitress becomes infatuated with a tech mogul and travels with him to his private island where things begin to go wrong. But yeah, basically about, there's this guy, Slater King, and he's so cool, played by Channing Tatum. And that, let's go to this island where we have this big party, and then it's like people start losing their memories, and
feels like a random mashup of like Knives Out and Get Out,
all the Out movies. Yeah, and then it randomly has like kind Kyle MacLachlan, Haley Joel Osment, Gina Davis, Aaliyah Shawkat, Christian Slater, randomly Levon Hawke, which I didn't even have to look at who his parents were, and I already knew if he's named Levon, it's friggin' Ethan Hawke's son, and it was literally, so like, yeah.
See that one that's in that famous meme picture of like he's sitting between Ethan Hawke and Rihanna, and he makes his son move so he can sit beside Rihanna.
Yeah, but literally it says reportedly named after Levon Helm, like, of course, literally,
loves
yeah.
his money.
Levon. He shall be. Gina Davis being in the movie again is just nice to see. But Simon Rex also somebody I forgot to mention is also in it. But, yeah. Anyway,
I mean, but again, the original title's like, wow, okay.
Pussy Island. Yeah, it's like okay. But anyway, all right. Anyway, so speaking of Pussy Island, Ronald Reagan. Or more like Nancy Reagan, as it turns
wait
out.
for me to read the premise, which I've not done until I just read it here. Film funnels. The film follows.
Film fondles the legacy of Ronald Reagan.
That's what somebody will say. The film follows Ronald Reagan's life from his childhood to his years as President of the United States, told from a former KGB agent.
Wait, what?
So that's a random angle on all this that I did not know was going to happen.
Now, that's automatically more interesting than what
So, the movie was shot back in September of 2020.
Yeah, it's been on the shelf for a long time.
So, that right there should tell us that...
Yeah, because this is one of the first movies that was being made in the COVID kind of production cycle, I remember. And it's like been, just basically missing...
Well, don't worry, though. Xander Berkeley is available. And
Xander Berkeley's who?
He is George Schultz.
Yeah, literally. What? Xander Berkeley is George Schultz? Literally, who's smoking pot, making that idea?
Of course, Dennis Quaid is Ronald Reagan. That's the big thing to talk about.
Yeah, it seems like he looks enough like him.
Penelope Ann Miller as Nancy Reagan. C. Thomas Howell as Casper Weinberger. Nick Searcy as James Baker. I don't think we're necessarily fans of Reagan.
Really?
Yeah, but it is inevitable that there is a movie going to be made about him.
Well,
and that's based on a book, by the way, called The Crusader, Ronald Reagan and the Fall of Communism. So go ahead and know what version of this is going to be.
You know, I mean, doesn't it feel like, just based on what you just said this is, it's like from the point of view of a KGB agent, it's like how Vice was from the point of view of the guy whose heart he got in the heart transplant. It's like, doesn't that feel like that's basically ripping that off more or less in a way of like, oh, we're going to do this from like a different perspective.
I really hope, I might even hate watch this movie at some point, I don't know. I really hope that it's like, the whole thing is like, I hated America, but then I saw him and was like...
And was like, I want blue jeans. Yeah. I want Pizza Hut. Yeah. Have you seen those Pizza Hut ads with Mikhail Gorbachev in them?
Right.
Yeah. It's like, but,
I am morbidly curious to see what this is going to be. I don't even know, but it'll probably pass and I forgot about it and not even see it.
Nobody really knows that it's happening anyway. There'll be a whole thing about it on Fox News when it comes out.
When this promos... the poster of the movie.
Yeah.
When this photo was taken, Quaid's like, this is going to be my
I
Oscar
am Ronald
moment.
Reagan. Ronald Wilson Reagan, 6 letters.
And then when it doesn't do as well with the critics or financially, oh my God, they hate Saint Reagan.
They're turning off the air conditioning and the light and keeping the lights on in Reagan.
There'll probably be a Trump rally that was like, I saw the Reagan movie. And it's like, and he's like, people hating it or blah blah blah, and then it'll be a whole talking point in the middle of the election and everything.
Yeah.
So get ready for all that nonsense.
And lastly, the moment we've all been waiting for.
Beetlejuice, the Entertainer. No.
Yeah. Well, I don't know what the hell you're talking about, man.
Beetlejuice. Now, you'll remember way back when we did a Beetlejuice pod, so Beetlejuice.
You also remember this is the movie I've seen more than any film. Beetlejuice, not Beetlejuice. I haven't seen that yet.
It doesn't even really have a little
Beetlejuice again. Literally, I mean, yeah.
Sequel, second film of the Beetlejuice franchise, but that's there's a lot of things that go with the franchise, like the animated series,
like the franchise.
Michael Keaton went on
and
a
you
writer.
can't forget Beetlejuice's Graveyard Review.
which was okay.
Yeah.
Catherine O'Hara reprising their roles, along with new cast members Jenna Ortega, Justin Theroux, Monica Bellucci, Arthur Conti, and Willem Dafoe.
Willem Dafoe in this.
What's his character's name again? Wolf Jackson.
Wolfman Jack.
It says, well, according to this, it says a ghost detective who in life was a B-movie action star. But he's a ghost detective in the world.
I already love that. I'll say that.
Dan DeVito has some unknown role also, it says in here. So,
all right.
I really hope he plays the character that he played in Mars Attacks that got killed and is in the afterlife. So
had the watch. Yeah, I'm giving the Rolex watch.
Like getting shocked, you know. Like,
yeah. That was the first time I ever heard anybody on film say, Papa needs a new pair of shoes, by the way. That was the first time I ever heard anybody say that. So,
all right, Levi, what are we thinking so far? Let's take the temperature. What do we think of the trailer that we've... Well, it's kind of a trailer and a half, I guess. There was like a little teaser that was released a while back within a bigger trailer that we saw with
I was
Furiosa.
more heartened by this trailer in the sense of the imagery and the production design is flawless looking. I love it.
And I heard they talked, apparently at CinemaCon, they showed some footage from it, and that all the cast members talked about that there were a lot of real sets, real practical stuff that was used, and you can see that play out in the trailer. Which is
something that has not been the case in the last so many Tim Burton films either.
Yeah.
It seems like he got very lazy and is relied on a lot of CG in certain ways. But no, there are moments from this trailer I think about of the practical effects in that are very clear, and I'm like, whoa, what am I looking at? And like some stuff that is pretty wild. I mean, it is what it is, you know. I mean, I don't have high hopes for it being really great. But
what's the ceiling for success for this movie, do you think?
Well, considering that Maxie Dean and his wife are still in that ceiling, I really couldn't tell you other than the fact that I think the ceiling is, I think the highest this movie can reach is 3.5.
Yeah,
and I think it's probably going to be more like a 2.5 or a 3. I'm thinking 2.5 is what I'm shooting at.
Here's a really great thing to remember: no matter how good or bad this movie is, it doesn't make the original.
It doesn't magically disappear. Right, that's the thing. It doesn't really matter. But it's like, I guess it's just with this movie, it's a particular ceiling of disappointment that it'll probably reach, or basement of disappointment. Like that pole of inaccessibility that we heard about in Furiosa.
I won't say what I said.
Yeah, that was hilarious, by the way. But we're not gonna. It's a joke that's a little too blue.
Not that kind of
it's
show.
A little too blue.
Yeah.
Come on, Blue.
This is a family show.
This is a family show. I mean, we already talked about Pussy Island. Why would we talk about that joke? That the ceiling of or the basement of disappointment with this is higher, I think, because of the fact that we could have gotten Beetlejuice Goes Hawaiian out of this, which is literally two of my favorite things is tiki culture and Beetlejuice coming together. Like, can you imagine?
Well, and the thing is, apparently, like, when that happened in the early 90s, when that script was written, like, Tim Burton thought that was, like, the worst idea ever, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, that was, like theoretically a great direction to go with it, but...
Yeah, I can only imagine the
in my mind
everything that could have come out of that. Yeah, is just, I don't know, I'm saying whatever. But yeah, so this movie's already kind of fighting a losing battle, and
it's the Robert E. Lee of
the lost cause narrative of Beetlejuice. Yeah. Now, you know what's funny though is it's like they're already. We said this I think yesterday. It's like you have Beetlejuice, then you have Beetlejuice. And then it's like, so then they have to almost make it's almost like they're setting themselves up to make a third one so it can be Beetlejuice.
And
but
they were joking that it's like, it should just be Beetlejuice 3 just to not
or like Dumb and Dumber 2.
Yeah.
And then be like Dumb and Dumber 4, FOR or whatever. But yeah, I mean...
so the production design looks good.
Yeah. Justin Theroux's in it.
Yeah.
Willem Dafoe's in it as a ghost detective named Wolf
and come
Jackson.
On, Michael Keaton.
Yeah, Well, I'll say this: the little bit I've seen of him in the trailer, I mean, it sounds dumb, but I'm gonna be real obvious and real like where's Hot Topic all day kind of thing. But like he's got that Beetlejuice energy.
The
you know,
juice
like,
is loose.
You know, it does
says.
feel like
R.I.P.
it's Beetlejuice.
OJ
You know,
Simpson, yeah.
right? It's nice to see. It's not like friggin' Max Rocks, Bebop and Rocksteady or whatever from Mad Max, like where it's like, oh, it's another person playing that. It's like, no, it is Michael Keaton doing Beetlejuice. It feels like it is that, you know. So
I think the thing for us that is like,
I love Jenna Ortega, so to see her in something will probably like this would be nice.
And we're bringing back Winona Ryder and Catherine O'Hara, and I think for us,
Alec Baldwin, we know why he's not in it.
Oh,
Gina Davis, I guess, was making Blink twice. So
yeah. But I think the thing for us that it's like, again, as I said earlier, it's not going to make Beetlejuice magically disappear. But of all the reheated franchise things that have been done in the last so many years, this is one that's actually very close to us in terms of, because we look at Ghostbusters and say, well, screw that, who cares?
I don't even have to look at it. I'm like, yeah, whatever.
Now, like Michael Keaton's role-ish in Flash as Batman, we talked about that way back when, is like, oh no, whatever, who cares? That was, you know. But this is like, again, it's not going to take away from the original Beetlejuice, but it is one of those reheated franchises that we actually do care about in some way. So it's like, well, we hope it's good, but you know, who knows? Right. But yeah, so we end that on cautious optimism. Yeah. Out of all these, what's the one you're most excited about? Let's rank top three.
Okay,
Bike Riders number one.
Reagan's number one. No, Bike Riders number one, definitely. Yeah. And then it's kind of a toss-up between Longlegs and the Horizon films, and then probably Kinds of Kindness after that.
I think
that's somewhere in that.
Mother Couch has potential.
Yeah, that has something. I mean, the only thing with that is I'm tired of the cult movie.
Yeah. In
the sense of, there's a cult in the movie. But this time it's a cult in an old, like, furniture store. So I'm like, okay, there's something going on there.
Yeah.
Like, it's like the... this will make sense to no one, but it's like the Guided by Voices album Cool Planet. The cover of the album Cool Planet made into a movie, basically, is what it looks like. It's like, what is going on here?
Yeah.
But here, let me show you actually an image of that, and you'll be like, yeah, okay. But yeah, that's more or less what I'm thinking that would be. Yeah, here's what that looks like.
Yeah, I see
it's
that.
Literally like huge sale. There's nothing there.
Any other parting thoughts, Levi? How are you feeling about this overall slate of things?
I think it's looking good.
I think it looks good.
We haven't even gotten to the.
Well, you said this too, that there's a lot of pessimism going on right now on film Twitter. This has been overall a pretty good movie.
Been
year
the best
so far.
movie year since 2017, I think, possibly.
I think last year, as we talked about, was pretty good, but I do think so. I mean, all the movies we talked about, we like to varying extents. We already think we've seen one of the movies of the year in Civil War. Challengers being pretty good, Furiosa being quite good. So I think so far this is shaped up to be a good series of things, even though despite people's pessimism.
And even some other movies earlier in the year that we've already talked about, of even Lisa Frankenstein and Love Lies Bleeding, Monkey Man, Dune. So yeah, I mean, we've already had a good group of movies.
So again, this is a bonus episode. We gave you a good 3.5 hours worth. So we're not in the next episode. We're not going to have really a Blue Plate special because this covered that.
But actually, the best movie of the year so far is Bob Marley, One Love.
One Love. Peace.
Peace.
This is Kyle.
This is Levi.
Take care. God bless.
You know, by the way, I wonder how he fared in the peace race. That's what I want to know. But yeah, tune in on Friday. We'll have what is it? THX 1138 and Possessor. I don't even know what we're doing. So that'll be a shorter one, obviously, because we're not going to have all this to talk about.
Take care. God bless.